what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinTheMorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Liberty?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
Jason Stack from Stacks Farmstead. What's it called?
MikeGinTheMorning.com.
You can check out all the shenanigans that Mike G and Philly Chris are up to throughout the entire week. You can visit our social media profiles. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who'll listen to check us out at MikeGinTheMorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams, bringing you the Scott Adams Show, weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. We've got the one, the only, Dan the Man Bongino, bringing you the Dan Bongino Show, weekdays from noon until 3 p.m. We've got the headliner, intellectual giant Ben Shapiro, bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show, weekdays, 3 to 5 p.m. And finally, we love having him at the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show, weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
We've got plenty of the members of the Mike G in the Morning family visiting with us here. We've got Rita. Give her a hey now, Philly Chris.
Hey now, Rita. Hey now.
Brian Harper checking in. Give him a hey now.
Hey now to Mr. Harper.
We've got a very special guest here with us on the program today. We've got Jason Stack of Stacks Farmstead. He joined us briefly on this program in the past, and we thought it would be proper to have him on for a full-length interview, continuing on our series about comeback stories. Now, Jason has got quite the comeback story. We're going to be talking about a lot of heavy topics today on this program. I'm very thankful that we have the opportunity for him to join us. Jason, thank you for coming on the program.
Not a problem at all, buddy. Not a problem.
So, Jason, before we get into your story, and everybody who's listening, you're going to want to stick around for this because you're going to hardly be able to believe it. But stick around. Jason, tell us a little bit about where you're at in your life today.
Well, I mean, first, let me say, off the top, this is going to be a little off subject. No zucchini.
No zucchini. That's an important message for everybody.
That's great.
But where I'm at right now is I'm in a place right now where I never thought I could ever, like, I dreamed the dream once when I was really down and out, and it was along the lines of something I thought was unattainable. And I'm like, I can see it now. I didn't think I'd ever be able to see it before. So I always wanted to get some of my own land, and I was luckily able to pick up a few acres by where I bought my place. So we're starting a little, like a micro farm, learning how to do that. I mean, it's amazing what you don't know when you don't know. I mean, I just jumped in with both feet. So, I mean, it was one of those things where, it's trial by fire. Like,
Right.
It's really not as easy as you might think, a lot of people are just, you're going to put seeds in the ground and water it, you're good. It's like, it's so far from that. But I mean, it's a great learning experience. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is that I'm starting that. And I actually just started a little electrical contracting company. We're picking up small jobs here and there. And it's just, I don't know how to put it, but it's just one of those things where I just never really thought the opportunity would be there, considering how much time I wasted in the past. These types of things, typically you have to work really long, really hard for it to acquire,
Absolutely. So with a microfarm, what does that consist of? You said it's not just putting seeds in the ground. What types of things are you working towards growing?
Well, here, I'll put it this way first, because for a little context, I'm trying to do every bit of this without debt. So, but the house I bought is paid for. The land I bought is paid for. I worked my ass off to get that ability, because I don't like the idea of being beholden to a bank. And I'm sure if you listen, you've been paying attention, you see, like, if you owe money for something, it's not like you can just go to work anymore. Like, like you might not be able to, for whatever reason comes down the pipe, you just might not be able to. They decide you have to take a zucchini, and you don't want to, you might not be able to earn a paycheck that week. So, I mean, and whatever. So the point is I did all of that to try to build something that I didn't have to worry about losing because of an outside entity, So with a microfarm, all it really is what it sounds like. It's just a small, instead of a commercial scale farm. But what we're focusing on is permaculture, not agriculture. Permaculture being something like permanent, right? Like, if I'm not there all the time, or even just say I'm gone, that this place could continue by itself if necessary. The animals. Yeah.
Stacks, is a microfarm where you get those tiny little miniature ears of corn?
Yeah. When you don't put enough fertilizer in the ground, you definitely get micro corn.
Little corn.
Just checking, I'm sorry.
But no zucchinis on the microfarm.
No, absolutely not. No.
Brian Harper agrees with your message. He says, just say no to the zucchini.
Yeah.
We've also got Len Larson chiming in. Give him a hey now, Phil.
Hey now, Len Larson. Welcome to the program.
Hey now, Len. Rusty Shackelford says, caress that like button. Hulk smash it. Do whatever you got to do. We've got a lot in store for you today. Now, Jason, before we get into your story, we know you've been very public about your journey with your daughter, Hope, and I'm sure all of the Mike G in the Morning family wants a little bit of an update on that. She's been in everybody's prayers. Tell us what's going on.
I tell you, I had plans to give her a little promo here, but she was cranky. She needed to go to bed. She was screaming. But as an update, she's doing extremely well. I touched on that the last time we spoke, and it's kind of amazing. Like, we're blessed. We're blessed. I mean, we've been very, very lucky. I can only attribute it to, some people don't like to use the word God. I use it, higher power. There's something in the words.
Use the word God on this program. There's no issue with that on this program. We don't care what anybody else thinks. Go ahead.
We're
not going to suppress the truth on this program.
Great. That's what I'm all for. I say what you mean to say, But I mean, she's exceeded expectations in every category. So I can't. It almost brings a tear to your eye to consider what was possible, in that moment. And then to see that it's almost irrelevant. Like, they don't have her on any real medications anymore. And it was just about maybe a month ago. It's like just aspirin is basically to thin her blood is all they had her on. And considering the severity of what they had to do, it's amazing. Like, it really is. Like, I really don't know what to attribute it to other than God. I don't,
It's an absolute miracle. We're so happy for you and your family. Brian Harper is on a roll and says, God, 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 God. And Liberty says,
9
amen,
gods.
Brian, in the comments. Absolutely wonderful. But we're glad to hear that news. And, thank God. Thank God.
Well, I mean, just for context, because I just realized that people might not know this part,
Sure.
but she was
Yeah.
born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And that's basically what that is the left side of her heart. And this happens to a lot, actually. It is so severely underdeveloped that it's basically not working. So the easiest way to explain it, and I got a heart surgeon in the family that explained it to me. They have to replumb the heart. They go in, open heart surgery, and replumb the heart. And that happened in her first few days of being born.
That's crazy.
Wow.
I can't imagine getting that news.
You know, we were prepared because they knew something was up early on, and you know, we had everything ready. And again, you know, God, higher power, you know, pick your poison, whatever you want to say. I say God. They in the exact area with the best doctor for this. Like there's a very slim chance that would ever happen. So people come from all over the world for this. There's people from India that were in the waiting room with their kids. They come from all over the world to see this doctor. And we just happen to be an hour away.
That's incredible.
That's pretty
incredible.
wild.
Yeah. How could you attribute that to anything other than God? Well, if you don't believe in God when you're listening right now, when you're finished hearing Jason Stack's story, you're going to believe in God because his story is an absolute miracle. Jason, you know, when we were interviewing Jesse Crossan last week, who was incarcerated for 19 years, and I think a few weeks back when Len was on the program telling a quick story about one of his friends, you chimed in and said something about, well, if you think that story's interesting, wait till you hear mine.
Yeah.
But when we were talking to Jesse last week, one of the things that struck me was he said that he had a fairly average childhood, and it was sort of a run-of-the-mill type childhood. You had anything but the average childhood. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in your household?
Jeez. Well, you know, here's the thing too. You know, over time, there's more context that tends to develop. It's easy to not like your parents given the situation I was in, but as time goes on, I start to realize that it's easy to hang on to hatred, but I don't do that anymore. So when I was a kid, I had no idea how wrong everything was because you don't have any context as a kid, you know, like you don't understand that no food being in the fridge is a bad thing. You don't understand that the lights or utilities being off is a bad thing. Not having shoes that fit because they won't buy you shoes is a bad thing. If you've never been through it, you've never been through it. You know, like how would you know? You know, being that young. So when I was a kid, you know, it was all right in the beginning as far back as I remember. It seemed like everything was fairly normal. My mom and dad, my mom was 18. I think my dad was 20 whenever my mom got pregnant with me. And this was back in the 70s. So I was born in 79. And I think it seems to me, at least initially, they tried. But that went away pretty quickly. They chose to party rather than take care of us. And I got a sister, and she came along a few years later, and she basically got the same neglect. So, you know, we kind of struggled together with a lot of it. And when you say to what it was like, it's like, Mike, it's hard to put it as a context. That one word is neglect, you know, abuse and neglect. Like we were basically left to fend for ourselves after a certain point, you know, given that they did try for a while. I remember it wasn't always bad, but at some point they just decided to stop, stop caring, stop trying, stop, you know.
Wow.
It's obvious now that I'm a father. And when I see it, I'm like, I can't even fathom that. I don't understand where that plays a role. You know, I don't understand how that happens. I don't.
Was there substance abuse that was involved with all of this?
Oh yeah. They that's what I meant by party, but
right.
They I mean, like I grew up in a bar past a certain point. There was a bar that my dad was at, and if I didn't go to the bar, I didn't see my dad. I don't, you know, I remember being a kid where, like, you know, sitting on a bar stool at the bar at 9, 10, you know?
And they were okay with that at the bar, obviously.
Yeah,
they
well,
let
I
us
mean,
know.
you know what's funny about that is there was one old man that always had a problem with it, and I just thought he was a jerk back then, but now I realize that he was right, you know? Because he would say something and they would say, shut the, you know, and I'm like, you know, like when I think back on it now, he's the only sane one in there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I grew up in a bar early on, and you know, I walked from school to my house, nobody would be there, and then I would walk from my house to the bar to eat
And
bar food,
this is 9 years old.
Wow.
roughly.
So
Yeah.
Did you ever consume any alcohol there as a child? Like, did they ever give you a drink or something? Or
No
okay.
one ever offered
That's
me
good.
any
That's
alcohol.
good. Yeah,
No,
just curious,
no.
So at 9 years old, you're saying if you don't go to the bar, then you don't see your dad. Did that ever happen where you were just left alone at home for an extended period of time?
Oh yeah. 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 If we didn't go actively search them out, we wouldn't ever see them. You know, that's what it was. I swear, I tell you, like looking back now, it's really insane. But you know, like it was always a crapshoot whether there might be something to eat or the lights on or whatever. You know, like it was just, you just never, completely unstable. Like, I mean, you just never knew. And again, when I look back on it now and the questions that I would get from like family members and people that knew, I mean, like I was thin, like, you know, like they could tell, they'd always say, are you eating? And it's like, I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like I would say, yeah, but I mean, I ate something, but it wasn't eating, you know, and it's hard to put that into context when you're a young kid. You don't understand what they're even asking.
Sure.
Were you confused as a child as to how they might know that perhaps you weren't eating?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now that I see pictures of myself from whenever I was a young kid and, you know, I was a rail, I was severely skinny. And then, you know,
I'm just curious as if how a child processes that. Some adult comes over to you, whether it's a teacher or a family member, and says, hey, have you eaten anything? You said you don't quite understand the question. And really, though, you hadn't eaten meals or anything like that. It's almost like, well, how do they know that? You know, you might not even put two and two together as an 8 or 9 year old kid.
Yes. Like, it's almost like, you know, how would they know? But, you know, it's obvious, you know?
As adults it is, but as a kid, as a child, I could see how that would be confusing. Like,
when I was in a therapy a long time out, not to skip ahead, but I was actually taken out of my home at one point, put into a group home, and that's when I actually learned about the idea that like what you think is normal is not.
Right.
Do you drink, Stacks, or do you not drink or anything?
I did. I gave it a good run for a long time.
we'll get there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I apologize.
So you and your sister, you know, at this point, you're 9 years old. She's a few years younger than you. So she's how old at this point?
She's, well, if I'm 9 or 10, she's 5, 6, something, you know, around there, depending on, you know.
So 5, 6, and 9 or 10, and you know, parents never home, and hardly ever food in the house. You said. So what would happen if you are home? There's no parent home. You don't go searching out for the bar because it's not a normal thing for a kid to have to do. And there's no food in the house. What do you guys do in that situation?
It was a very strange pattern that always happened where there would, and I don't know what would make this occur, but there would always be some kind of pancake mix, you know, like instant pancakes. And with that, all you needed was water. And for whatever reason, we could constantly find that, from what I remember, being mostly available in the house. And I can only imagine it was because it was something that was cheap. So it was there. And we would find new and interesting ways to make different types of pancakes all the time, you know? Yeah, just being that young when we're on the stove.
That's that's heartbreaking, right? Would you let a 9 or 10 year old kid play with a stove, let alone fend for themselves? It's
again, I mean, I can't put it into words about how I can't picture it. Like, you know, I know it happened to me, but I don't understand being the adult, seeing how that happened, how it transpired, knowing that something along those lines has to be happening. So I don't, again, because I'm a father now, there's no way. I would sacrifice everything like to make sure that nothing even remotely close like that would ever happen. And I wouldn't even have to have gone through this to even know that. You know what I mean? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, that's something I constantly, I struggle with myself, is just the understanding of knowing that they knew and did nothing. So, you know, what do you do? I mean, you know, it's one of those fine points where it's like, so at some point you said, how come? You know, like,
we'll bleep
I
that
mean,
out tomorrow.
I mean, I don't mean to be vulgar, but I mean, you know,
leave
that's,
it
but I mean, like, it's basically what else would you say? I mean, as a parent, like, what else would it be?
Yeah.
You know, just,
Right.
you just don't care. You can't, you know?
Now, when they were home, what were things like? I'd imagine it wasn't like being around a normal family.
I was severely abused. My mom, not so much physically, but they would fight with each other constantly, and it would be very physical. And, you know, I've seen my dad get arrested for smacking my mom around a bunch of times. I don't really know how many times, but you have to imagine, I watched this happen all the time. Police come to the house, take him away, or be looking for him because he ran out. Neighbors call, mom calls. But that aggression would turn on me at different times. You know, I remember going to school with black eyes and all busted up. And again, thinking back on it, like he would tell me say that I fell or something, you know, like, don't say anything. And it was my fault somehow. You know, if I would just listen, he wouldn't have to do this. And, you know, I'm sure you can imagine but yeah, I mean, that's what it basically would be like. There's very little very good times that I can remember, other than, you know, very early on, before things took a turn. I do remember some good times, but, you know, after they just kind of checked out, it was all downhill.
So you've got a young kid around that age dealing with all this stuff, dealing with, you know, physical abuse, dealing with emotional abuse, dealing with neglect, malnourishment, dealing with being exposed to the police, dealing with being exposed to bars and partying. And I know you didn't expressly mention any drugs. Were there drugs involved in the bar scene?
I mean, of course, you know, yeah, but I didn't know. I think my dad, and I know that he messed around with some things, but I think my dad was more of an alcoholic. My mom, on the other hand, seemed to really like narcotics more. But I think it was all about a party, you know, like they wanted to party. They were young when I was born, and I don't think they wanted to turn the corner and become adults. I think they just didn't want it, you know.
Did they have jobs?
Yeah, periodically, you know, like my dad actually had, which is I think where some of the good times came from, because my dad actually had a pretty good job at some point, because, you know, we were never hurting for anything, and Christmas was a pile of gifts and, you know, things like that. But he screwed that up somehow, and I would imagine it had something to do with
The drinking.
I don't know. Yeah, I would guess. I don't really know. My other thing that I think was an insinuation from an aunt and uncle is that maybe he got caught stealing from the company or job too. Yeah, and my mom worked at the hospital here in Pittsburgh, because I grew up in Pittsburgh. And my mom worked at the hospital, and there's a bunch of hospitals in Pittsburgh, but she worked at one of those for a while. And yeah, like I said, I mean, they did okay for a while, but it was just chaos, utter chaos. It just ruined everything.
So as a young kid, I mean, your true focus is supposed to be doing well in school, playing Little League and those kinds of activities. What was that like for somebody who's in that kind of a home environment? How did you do in school? Did you get to ever play Little League sports or anything like that?
Well, you know, that's funny, because it's questions like what you just said that make me remember some of the things that it probably wouldn't have just come right to the forefront of my mind. But as far as Little League, the crazy part was I got into Little League and I started to do pretty well. They were never there for any games, ever. It's something that stands out. And I mean, I went through years of playing and they were never in the stands. Never. Like, I remember my mom coming from time to time, but my dad would never show up. Like, I mean, it was something that I think I carried with me unknowingly for a while, of like the disappointment of like that, you know, like it felt like I could never make him proud in any way. Like it just felt like he never wanted me. And I think that carried through to a lot of different things that, you know, baseball being one of them, you know, like I started to get kind of good at baseball, and just as something that also just popped in my mind, they wanted me to play basketball. I'm 6'4" right now, so I was always kind of tall, and they wanted me to play basketball when I was in middle school. And this is sad. I think back on it now, like, damn, they wouldn't buy the uniform for me. The coaches tried to give me a uniform, and the uniform was about 2 to 3 sizes too small.
Oh man.
And so it was like they'd give me like you wear the shorts, it was like wearing underwear. And I was embarrassed. I couldn't do it. You know, I went to one game, I sat on that bench, they tried to put me in, and I was like, I can't, there's all the girls from school here. I'm like, I can't like be running around in your underwear, like right on a court. And so yeah, I mean, that was something I just remembered as you were talking, as you mentioned it. But then school also, see, I remember all the teachers always saying, like, you were doing like straight A student, like all the way up to a certain point. And then it went from straight A's to straight E's. And I remember specifically when that time started is, you know, when the abuse kind of started, and my grades kind of climbed down, but they climbed down pretty quickly. And I remember I was deathly afraid of my dad, because it wasn't just a beating. You were getting punched in the freaking face. You know what I mean? Like it was terrible. But being afraid that he would find out that I did something wrong. And when the report cards would come in the mail, and they were E's. And I'm thinking, well, this is my death sentence, right? So they never said anything to me. Months went by and they never said it. And I knew it was on the top of the fridge. And I just remember thinking, and this is one of these thoughts where like it just comes in. I remember this one distinctly, is that, well, if they don't care, then I don't care.
That's heartbreaking for a kid that age. It's like you haven't even gotten out of the gate. You haven't had any opportunity to do anything. You don't realize the magnitude of how you've been wronged at that point in time, and you're giving up hope before you ever have a shot.
Right.
Was there anybody, I'm curious, Stacks, was there anybody you confided in or talked to, like, you know, peers your age, friends, or any other family members, or some adults or teachers, or did you just like really keep it all to yourself?
Chris, I wish I could, like, it might be, the context is kind of difficult to describe how that works. You don't know that something is wrong.
Right.
That there's
just your reality. That's your
experience. Yeah. I mean, like it's the hand that you're dealt, and you don't know that there's other hands. You know, you don't know that you caught the short end on this. You just don't know. And like, it's not like, it never occurred to me back then that I would ask for help. You know, like it never occurred to me that was even an option to ask for help. You know, it's just,
you know, I'm a little bit older, but not too much. But back then, it's not like it is now, where I think they make those opportunities for assistance more known, and you know, it's kind of brushed under the rug back then, I think, a little more. Maybe.
We got CB piping in over here, says, Stack, thank you for telling us your story.
Yeah.
And goes on to say, takes courage to open up about your life with anyone. Props to you, Stack. Absolutely.
I'll second that, yeah.
I know it's got to be tough to share some of these details, but our hope, and I'm sure your hope, is that somebody can hear this story, because we know how it ends, and be encouraged by this, and get the message that no matter where you are in life, you can climb out of that hole, and it's never too late, because we're just at the tip of the iceberg, frankly. We've got a lot more to talk about. So once you realize that they didn't care, and you sort of resolved yourself to, if they don't care, then why should I? Around how old do you think you were at that point?
Probably 14, 15, maybe something, 13 at the earliest, I would imagine, something like that.
All right. So you're a young teenager at that point. Are you getting involved in any drinking or drugs yourself?
No, but crime.
So crime is where it started.
I figured out very
drugs
quickly.
and alcohol that led to the crime. Crime is where it started.
Yes.
So
Yep.
how did that all get going? Who did you get introduced to, and what'd you start doing?
This is gonna sound fucking. I mean, I'm sorry. It's gonna sound.
Russ, the producer, is gonna have his work cut out.
Please, I'm sorry, Russ. I apologize, buddy. I'm sorry. I think about it now. And I think how insane it is. But we were stealing cars. We stole cars and took them to chop shops at 13.
No way.
You know, yeah. I mean, and see, there was a lot of back in the 90s. There was a lot of stolen cars. I mean, people. It was so easy to steal cars. It was once you knew how to do it, there was nothing getting in the way.
You were driving it and everything, like stealing it.
Oh
and driving it. Wow.
Yeah. We had this. I mean, enough time has passed now, but we had an old age home that was directly across the street from the house, and they had been building this addition for a long time. And on the bottom floor of the addition was a parking lot. We filled it up. We filled it up.
Wow.
Because what would happen is we would get a phone. Back then it was pagers, and we would get a page from somebody saying, I need, I don't know, that's an 84 white Grand Dam. If you get an 84 Grand Dam, we'll give you this much if it's anything. But if you get white, we don't have to paint it. We'll give you $100 more.
Wow.
Now, $300 to a 13-year-old kid that's starving is, that's quick.
It's like winning the lottery.
It is, and it's easy. Well, I'm gone in 16 seconds.
It's like that Gone in 30 Seconds movie, right?
It's faster than that.
Yeah, 16. That's pretty cool. I like that movie. It was a good movie. Did you watch that movie?
Yeah. You know what? I see a lot of the old stolen car movies. Like New Jersey Drive was very similar. Like that's how it was wide open. Like we weren't the only ones, and there was a lot of cars that went missing those years.
Did someone teach you how to do this?
That's what I was going to ask. So how are you who are you getting these calls from on the pager? Because certainly as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, it's not like, okay, let me figure out how to steal a car and just go ahead and get it. There's got to be somebody who is motivating you to do it, or pushing you in that direction. What was that all about?
Well, I mean, again, New Jersey Drive, it was like that in Lawrenceville and Pittsburgh. I mean, that's what people did. Like you didn't have to even wander too far before you found a stolen car already broke down. And if you know how to start it, you can just drive away with it. But besides that, there was a friend of mine named Ricky, and I won't divulge like last names, but he was a friend of mine, and he knew a guy that taught him. It was an older guy, much older guy, that taught him how to do it. And through that, got the connection with the chop shop. And then just brought his brother and me into it. We were very tight for a long time, and we just went all in. I mean, it was like we were all kind of in the same boat as far as parents, it's like, and there was only, I look back on it now and it's such a crazy mindset, but like we were just it was so reckless. Like, I mean, it was, we would antagonize the cops to chase us. And then we'd get out on them. They wouldn't catch us. I knew how to drive better than most people 3 times my age. I'm not joking. It was,
and you were antagonizing them for the thrill of it?
Yeah. I mean, Mike, when you seriously don't care, it's amazing what you can do. The most frightening person in the world is somebody that truly doesn't care about what happens next.
Right.
They're capable of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these dirtbags who are preying on these young kids from these troubled backgrounds and encouraging them, leading them, luring them into this life of crime? I'm sure they're all over the place. It almost sounds to a degree like the story in Goodfellas, right? The young kids who wanted to get involved, they thought it was cool, and there's the money aspect to it. Was that sort of what it was like?
Oh, definitely. So part of it is like, along with that comes a decent amount of power and respect in some way, because you're in the streets, and when you get a reputation in the streets, it's like they know, like it doesn't matter your age. If somebody knows you're capable, they're gonna get you to do it. And like when you're underage, you're even more of an asset to somebody because you just get a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Like if they do happen to catch you, you're not going to the penitentiary. You know what I mean? It's that you're gonna go to the juvie hall, and then they're going to kick you loose in a couple days.
Did you have a street name?
Stack.
Okay. Okay. That one to Stack. He'll get it in 16 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's probably still spray paint on the walls in Lawrenceville that says Stack on it right now.
Wow. Wow. So did you ever get caught doing anything like that? But as far as the cars go?
All the time. I mean, we got booked a bunch of times. I even took a case for something I didn't even do because I sincerely believed in that crime life stuff. You know, like they were what I considered to be my family back then. You know, like I felt like I didn't have anything else, you know? So, you know, I would go to bat for them, and thank God, you know, we didn't really have to get any crazier than that, because it would have went even crazier. There's no doubt in my mind.
So you're not a rat.
No, no, that's one thing. No, I've been called a lot of names, and that's never going to be one of them.
Okay, good.
So is that what it was all about? You guys felt like you were one another's family because you came from a place where you had no family?
Trauma will bind you to other people that are in trauma, you know, and, you know, whether you acknowledge it in the moment or not, when you have that shared trauma, it becomes like a bond. And, you know, like whenever we can understand each other, you know, like we know that we're going to go out and we're going to do these things. And there's a reason, like, we don't care. And we're not saying we don't care. We don't care. You know, We're going to go do what it takes to get this done, because, you know, it has a lot of crossover to today, when people that are hungry, people that are desperate will do some crazy stuff. Yeah. And, you know, if you put a child that doesn't even understand the consequences of what that even means forward, it's even more dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild. It really was. Lucky to be alive.
So stealing cars, I'd imagine that wasn't the end of the road, and it's not what you continued on doing. Typically, when you start with something, it leads to other sorts of things. What was next in your criminal career, so to speak?
We sold a lot of drugs.
And how did that contact happen? How did that start and stem from stealing cars?
Well, you know, when you're, so I didn't even really care about drugs. Like when I was younger, it was more about the thrill. And that's when with the cars, and we, you know, hungry, we didn't have clothes, shoes. So like we turned to that crime to facilitate those things. And then I quickly learned about, like I said, you know, like there's an immense amount of power and respect that comes with that, which I didn't know anything about until it actually happened. And then through that, you earn a reputation. People get to know your name. They know who you are. And we then started to smoke a little bit of weed, you know, kind of off and on. There was other people that were much more into it than I was at that time. But the idea is that, well, we couldn't always get it. Like it was sort of a struggle sometimes, you know. So I decided I was going to be the one to get enough to make sure that didn't happen anymore. So I just started to talk to the right people, and, you know, the guys that we would normally get smaller stuff from. I just said, what if I came to you with X amount, $300-400, you know, like, what would you be able to do? Then they just showed me. They literally showed me. I bought a quarter pound of weed and a scale, and he came to my house, showed me how to break it up, how to weigh it, break it up into different bags, how much you make, how much, you know, break it up. And we actually said, like, this is your flip. This is what you put in. You're going to make sure you got to get rid of that. And once you get rid of that pile, do what you want with this one. You're going to get high. You're going to sell it to make more money. Don't fuck up the flip. Jesus, I'm sorry.
Russ, Russ, you better be taking notes of timestamps over here.
Three times is a charm.
Yeah. All right. I'm really trying. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, I mean, that was the idea. It's just don't mess that up. And then you can always grow from there. You know, like you would just, and it quickly went. Like once people started to learn that I had it, and because it was a struggle at some other times, and just knowing everybody that kind of smoked, it was like boom, 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 boom. And the stuff was just flying off the doors. And if I told you the person that I was getting it from at one point, when it was pounds, you'd be shocked. I still kind of am when I think on it. Like the dude that was handing me pounds, like it got to the point where I didn't even need the money to pay them. They would just give it to me. And then I would pay them back when I was ready.
because they knew
Yeah.
you were good for it.
I
You're
guess that's how it works. Yeah.
very good. It's a shame because it
always give 'em a
sounds like you
car,
had a
too, I
lot of
guess.
characteristics that make for an extremely successful person in any other category, right? You see
Yeah.
somebody with that kind of drive and initiative and frankly fearlessness is a trait that you need to be successful and as an entrepreneur in a lot of other different professions.
Mhm.
And you just didn't have the guidance to put all of these amazing traits to something good. So now you're in the drug game, and a lot of people hear pot, they say, weed's harmless enough and everything like that. I'd imagine it doesn't end there.
No, that's, I mean, the truth is in my opinion, I'm more of a, and I hate the titles, but like, the libertarian aspect of like, you should just be able to do whatever you want, but
Right.
that's not the world that's not the world we live in. Right.
Mhm.
And so if you try to take something out of the market, it's going to create a black market, whether you like it or not.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter if it was weed or tobacco or alcohol. If there's a black market and a lot of money to be made, somebody's going to do it. That's all it is. But with that being said, yes, it steps up from there because, especially when it comes to cocaine, like you want to, like, that's where you really start to grasp. That's where I really started to grasp the idea of that there's a lot of power that comes with this, like when you start grabbing enough, stuff becomes available that you didn't think you'd be able to do. Like at one point I had more money than I knew what to do with. I was just buying these cars, and I'm like, it was just, and I blew every bit of it. You know what I mean? Like I did.
Right.
I had big, and that's part of the problem is that, like, I didn't even know what I had. You know what I mean? Like when you're looking at that much money and it comes that easily, you don't respect what that is. It's just, you just figure you'll just make it again, you'll just make more, whatever. So I mean, yeah, I mean it, and then it the type of drug from that point doesn't even matter. It really doesn't. It's just how much are you making.
How much are you making? Right. And I imagine that as you venture into the drug world, you start to encounter some more shady people, right? Not exactly upstanding citizens, and it becomes
the idea
more,
is to have them be
right?
The idea is to have them be more afraid of you than you are of them. Like if they think you're capable of doing some crazy stuff, it's less likely that crazy stuff will happen to you.
And every so often it gets put to the test, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you you got to split some skulls. It's just part of it. You just have to, like if somebody crosses that line, whatever that perceived line may be at that moment. I've gotten into so many fights I don't even remember. It's just that many. It's just unreal.
Wow.
Any major injuries that you sustained?
Actually, I mean, I've broke my pinky on my right hand a couple of times without really knowing, and it healed funny. So at a later point, right before COVID, I started to train jujitsu with a friend of mine. It was very short-lived because after COVID, it kind of like died off in a way where like we didn't have the opportunity. But those old injuries become relevant really quick. Like you just, even with the gloves on, you can feel it. But I mean, other than that, it wasn't anything too crazy. I told you, I've been lucky, man. Like I look back on it now and I'm like, I don't have any idea how I survived. And it's only because there's a God that's looking after me. There's absolutely no other excuse or reason. No one can be that lucky.
So when you were at the point where you've become successful, you're blowing the money and everything, are you using drugs at that point too?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What did you get into?
The only thing I've never done is smoke crack.
Wow.
And it was, to tell you the truth, it was just like, it's there, so whatever, right? Like it didn't, it wasn't, I wasn't real. There was some stuff I liked better than others, but I tell you real quick thing. First time I ever did cocaine in my life was in the Allegheny County Jail.
Wow. We were just talking about that.
Right.
Drugs in jail.
Yeah.
So, So was this the first time you were in jail, or was this just the first time you used that drug in jail?
It's a story, and I don't want to get off, but this is actually kind of relevant. So the first time I went to jail, I was 18 years old, and it was for not paying a fine. I basically told the judge to go screw off, right? I'm not paying the fine. I didn't care. I mean, that's how reckless I was.
What was the fine for?
Underage drinking.
Gotcha.
In a park.
So really not a big deal.
No, but I'm not, reckless, really.
Yeah.
I'm just totally reckless. So, when I get
you breaking up a little bit?
Hold on, let's back this up. Let's hang tight.
Okay.
Chris.
Yep.
I can hear you still.
Yeah.
So we'll wait till he pops back in.
It's just fascinating, it's really interesting to hear directly from folks like Stacks and like the show last week too, to hear these.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying
firsthand
this
accounts
series
of,
right now, and hearing these stories.
Yeah.
Incredibly entertaining.
Right. And it's interesting too, because the whole thing with like the correctional system, and you hear these stories, but the first time he used cocaine would, be in behind bar. Like, it's just makes you realize how broken the system is in our country. So screwed
Jason,
up.
can you give me a quick mic check?
Hey now,
No,
Jason.
He's still frozen.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and we'll let him out, and then let's get him to sign back in so we can see if that gets started up again. It was just about to get really good.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like, right. Everybody hit the bathroom real quick, grab your popcorn.
Right. First time I ever did cocaine was in jail. Let me tell you about that. Frozen. Like, oh, come on, man.
It's like, wait a minute. Somebody's trying to cut them off. They don't want the truth to get out.
They don't want the truth.
It makes you wonder sometimes.
We want to catch up on some of our hey nows over here. DG's back in town. Give her a hey now.
Hey now, DG. Hey now.
Len Larson says that he had a similar story to Stack, and instead of pancakes, he had spaghetti with no sauce. We might have to have him come on and talk about comeback stories.
That'd be cool. I have to give credit where credit is due, and Rusty Shackelford had a pretty funny comment earlier when Stacks first started talking. He said his friend's name was Ricky, and then Rusty said, "Was it
Ricky Bobby?" They're driving racing cars.
Right. That's wild too, man. At 13, can you imagine that?
Right.
I did drive a few times before I was supposed to, and I guess enough time.
We got him again.
Oh, is he back? Okay, but I can't imagine driving at 13.
Let's see. Give me a mic check, Jason.
Can you hear me at all?
We got you back. So we were just joking about this. We were joking about this because, the first time I ever did cocaine was in jail. Let me tell you about that story. And then you froze. And it's like, oh, come on. This is going to be the most amazing story ever.
I'll just quickly elaborate on it. It was this is why I didn't care about jail at this point, because I was 18 years old. I walk onto a pod, and I knew at least a third of the pod from the streets. I just knew everybody. And then because I was sentenced, they put me into a cell with another guy that I knew from Lawrenceville. So when you know each other, you can go up to the guard when you're new and just say, put him in with me, because you want to get a guy that if you have to get somebody, Right. So I get in with him, and we both put ourselves into positions in the jail being sentenced to work. And in those positions, we found a way to, again, make more money from doing stuff you're not supposed to do. So with that, I don't want to get into a bunch of detail because it's kind of messed up, but I was selling, you're not allowed to have tobacco in the jail, and I was selling tobacco in the jail. 90 days, I made $800. And that's almost undoable. So, I mean, you figure we were selling them for about $20 a pack, and you had to smuggle them in, you had to split people in. So I literally left jail with a check for $800 from the jail. It was kind of crazy. Because it's when you get money, you get money on your books, and people would give you money. If you don't use it all, they give you a check when you leave. It's the same thing.
Interesting.
So, that was my buddy's mom. knew of my situation about my parents, and she offered when she knew I was coming home, for me to stay with them. And even she was shocked. She was like, "You made how much?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just,
I don't think we
stayed a
got the
little
cocaine
longer.
story though. I don't think we got the
Sorry.
cocaine story.
Yeah, let's go back to the cocaine.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
again, smuggling stuff in. The dude I was cellies with, he actually was on a thing called street gang, and they would go outside in the front of the jail and clean up. So what I did, I kind of set this thing in motion, but other people got caught in, which is what brought in the coke. But I left some weed with a friend of mine, and I told him to keep flipping until I got out, keep the profits, but make sure I get my such and such back whenever I come back home. Well, I called him from the jail and I said, leave a 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce in a container outside in this spot. He's going to pick it up. So he would pick it up. The guards wouldn't search him because they're lazy. And he'd bring it back in. So we were partying. We were partying in the jail. Like, I mean, the guards would walk by and be like, what the hell? You know, but we did the same thing with coke when another guy came in. And up to that point, I kind of had like standards. It's laughable as that is. There was like, I didn't want to do that. I was just going to smoke weed. But so but that was the first time that we got it in, and I was just there, and I was like, well, what the hell, right? So that was the first time, and next thing you know, I'm doing laps around the top tier of the pod, just trying to drink water because it was crazy. But on top of that, because that was the first time that I did cocaine, was also the first time that I did methadone, because the guy that cleaned the outside and the front of the jail also cleaned this. The jail that we were in was a new jail. The old jail was down the street, and they were using them as, slave labor to go clean out the old jail. Well, in the old jail, they were allowed to have methadone. If you were prescribed it, it was there. Well, they put them in a room where they had prescriptions. Duh,
Wow.
That's
and
the
so
drug
they
they
stole
prescribe when you're getting off of heroin or something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really bad. Like the way they do people now, if you're on it and you just get taken right off, it's horrific. But I mean, that's the way they do it now. If you go into the jail now, you're not getting it. But they used to give it to you. Yeah. So he came, me not knowing anything about it, he came back onto the pod for just a few minutes and was like, here, these are for you. Put these ones in the stash. Don't take too many. I'll be right back. Well, he gave me 8. And I took a couple, and I didn't feel them right away. So I took all 8. That was a bad idea. That was a really bad idea.
Do you have trouble getting in a Lamborghini?
Dude, listen, they told me that I was playing spades as I was sitting at the table, and I just started to go out, out. And they picked me up and they put me on my bunk in the cell. I was out for 2 days. They thought I was going to die.
Wow.
That's wild.
That's incredible. So at this point, you've done drugs in jail. When you get out, are you ultimately still addicted to drugs?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't use the word addicted. I was more. I was addicted to the party and the lifestyle more than anything else. Of course, I wanted to go party because, it's a badge of honor back then, which is stupid, but it's a badge of honor to go do a bid and do it the right way and come out. You earn stripes doing that. If you think about it in a context that I explained it, it's like you can't do a bid better on a first 18-year-old bid. You can't go in for 90 days and do it any better. You told the judge to go screw himself. You went into jail. You made $800. You got high while you were in there, and then you came back out and just started hustling again. Right. I mean, it's not in that world. That's ideal.
And so then, how long until you get caught again?
Geez, I really don't know. It wasn't right away or anything like that. I kind of got smart for a while. I kind of, after realizing that, jail I wasn't fearful of jail, but it was going to put me behind being there. You know what I mean? Like it was going to get in the way. You know what I mean? So
unless you need $800,
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I make $800 a night, but I mean,
right.
but I mean, the idea is that, like, I was trying my best not to go back unless I had to, unless it was something worth taking a risk for. So it did take a little while before something happened, but during that time frame, I just got more and more reckless all over again. And that's really what happened, is that, like, if I didn't become more reckless, it would have lasted a lot longer. I just, again, stopped caring. It was one of those things where it was like, I just didn't even care anymore about anything. And, getting caught, being arrested, didn't care, just didn't care.
So you're in and out, you took a little while longer, but ultimately over a span of 20 years, you're in and out, in and out. Yeah.
I mean, maybe a dozen times, something along those lines. I don't remember the exact number about how many times I was actually in, but arrested a bunch, like what
was your longest stay, Stacks?
Couple years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are the guards like? What's your experience with the staff? What are they like?
To be perfectly blunt, they are no different than any other street criminal you're going to run into.
Really?
None of them are honorable. None of them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they all. So firstly, they're underpaid, which is always going to.
It sounds like a horrible place to be. So it has. Well,
they're prisoners too. They can't leave. They're not allowed to leave. Like, their shift, and they get forced. They're not allowed to leave until their sergeant or lieutenant, whoever, says you can go. They're literally doing time while they're in there. Because
good point.
They can't. And say somebody calls off on the next shift, the lowest man on totem pole is forced to stay. They're not allowed to leave. So. When they say we were forced, you'd hear it. You'd hear them say, well, I'm getting forced. And it would be like, yeah, he's going to be a dick today. Because, he's gonna, it's, there. And again, I would have conversations with them. I was just the uncaring, the way as I carried myself, I just didn't care. Like, I wasn't trying to put on a fake face and try to impress. I would just not care. So when I would just talk to them, and they would be like, we did the same things you did, just didn't get caught.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
So when you end up in and out for all those times, anything notable? Are we dealing with crimes different than drugs at this point?
Well, drugs just became kind of the premier thing, because after years and years of what was happening and not caring, I needed to be numb. So I didn't want to pay out of my pocket to go buy stuff that I could do for free if I sold it. Right. So drugs were just always a part of it, but then there was always, we would do whatever. It didn't matter. I can't stress that enough, that it didn't matter what we did, as long as we were making money, and it was part of the game. It was part of the hustle. If it meant knocking your head off and going in your pockets, because I know you have something, then we'll do that too. You know what I mean? If it was running in your house, then we'll run in your house. If it's just, giving a product to somebody that wants a product, whether that's a car or drugs, or didn't matter, whatever, it was just very much like a street life, It's just nothing else mattered.
I know Len, when he was on, was telling about the scrap metal story, and that seems to be when you piped in and said, if you like that story, I've got some stories for you. Was that ever something that you did when you were involved in that life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I don't want to give a ton of detail, but there was people that I brought into this with me that were like, no one's ever done it this way. Because we were taking stuff to the scrapyard and getting checks for like 10, 15 grand.
Really?
But we knew
wow.
because I had a connection with the scrapyard guy, and we kind of had an understanding. And to tell you the truth, he actually got caught later, before I was totally out of the scenario. And he knew that because I guess the detectives must have told him, but he knew that they came at me with a deal to tell on him, and I didn't say anything.
Wow.
And his son later on mentioned that to me when I came down to drop off a load of legit scrap, because I'm an electrician. So I came down with just a couple $100 from a job that we did. And he told me, he was like, my dad, he's still in a penitentiary, but he told me what they said. So if I go to this particular scrapyard now, I go right to the front of the line. They skip over everybody. Come on, Stack, get over here.
So what ended up happening where ultimately you make it out of this? What's the last time you're in jail, and what prompted you to not go back?
You know what, Mike? I was just thinking about that the other day. It's getting close to maybe 10 years, something like that. For whatever reason, the drugs have had a toll on me, and I'm not real good with remembering dates all the time. It's hard because it's kind of messed up because anniversaries and birthdays and stuff. I don't know why. It's the one thing that I have trouble with. Names all the time and birthdays. But it's roughly 10 years, I believe, since, or coming up on that, maybe 9, since I was in. And to tell you the truth, again, this change is, it's a godsend. It's something that I didn't anticipate, I didn't know about, and it just kind of happened. But so again, being in jail, in and out of jail, people, I know how to do things, plain and simple. There was actually a guard at one point that used to see us high all the time, and he would do this with his hand, and he'd come up and go, "How are you high all the time?" Yeah, it was pretty crazy. There's a lot of crazy stories like that. I don't want, it would take up a lot more time. But at one point, it started.
Again, when you've got like the greatest story of all time. Here's how I finally kicked the drugs and stopped committing crimes after 20 years.
You won't believe this one story. And bye, and he's gone. This is fantastic. Wow, I mean, it's really amazing, impressive.
Let's get him back in.
Yeah,
let's get him back in. We'll get him out.
I wonder what it was at the scrapyard for, like 10-15 grand.
I know that's ridiculous.
Must have been some serious
I see
metal.
K-Solo's in. K-Solo, we'll get you on at some point for an interview and talk about your story. And
we got to do a whole episode with K-Solo.
We'll do a whole episode on his story, continuing on this series about comeback stories. Let's see, is Stack back? I think we got you back. This is the second time it happened. You're like, I got this amazing story. Right. Here's how I finally got out of the life of crime and kicked all the drugs.
It's so weird because I got like full bars and I don't understand what's going on.
You look beautiful right now. So let's continue.
All right.
You got the floor.
Yeah. All right. So I got to the point where it was just like it started to become a hassle and I was getting angry. We were waiting for a drop to come in and it was like dude was kind of playing games. So I just got to the point where I was like angry, and it took until the following morning for us to actually get it to us. And for whatever reason at that point, it was so frustrating and I'm kind of hard headed. I was like, I don't even want it. And they were looking at me like, what are you crazy? I'm like, no, I don't even want it. Forget it. I don't even want it. So they took it. And the weirdest things started to happen when I made a conscious decision just off a whim to stop doing those things. It's very strange. I can't put it into words, but like I started to recognize that when I stopped doing these things, good things started to happen. And it was very quick. Like, I mean, hopefully it was just, a way for like I kind of look at it like a light being shined on the path, hey, this is it. This is what you got to do. This is what you do this, and we can work now. We could do something better now. So, yeah, I mean, I stopped in jail, and I didn't have to.
It wasn't really like a situation where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I got to get off these drugs. Let me stop. It was more of like God telling you you're stopping, and you don't even realize it at this point, right?
I mean, yeah. Again, like the only way I can kind of fathom it, the only way I can put it together as I look back and I think about it now is that I'm stubborn and hard-headed. And when I did that and I made just that decision to not do that, it was almost like I said, the light, or like if somebody's looking over you and go, hey, that's it right there. That, right. Do that, like don't do that. What you're doing right now, do that, like keep doing that. And that's basically what went on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But just so I know you probably want to move some things along, but I'll just say, like, when it came to that.
No. You tell the story the way it needs to be.
It's all good.
So what happened is I was actually in that time frame. They tried to send me to a place that's sort of like a halfway house for drug addicts, right? It was a treatment alternative, is basically what it's called, Allegheny County Treatment Alternative. And it's down the street from the jail. You're still a jail inmate. You still have a jail number. You're just not in the jail. So I'm down the street. And when you go to this place, you get the first 90 days or so where it's just like treatment. They're kind of evaluating you. Like, are you going to be crazy? Can we work with you? You know, and it's all sort of NA, AA, and sort of like therapy in a way too, to like try to figure out, because the other half is they're going to let you out on the street. They're going to let you go get a job, but it's very strict, you know? So
Hold on. Before you go on to this and we get too far along, did I hear a story about how you had been at one of these types of places and disappeared and ended up on Crime Stoppers with helicopters?
Yeah.
Could you tell us that story before we get fast forward to where you climb the mountain? Can we hear that story? Because that's
Mike, I wish. See, let me just preface this real quick. Is that the reason why I don't give great detail on all of this is because there's so much that even if I say everything, people just start to think I'm lying at some point. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, this is not what's happening to one person.
Everything before you came on, though, saying you're going to hardly believe this story. So
I glance over this stuff, and it's the craziest thing that could happen to just one singular person. I just glance over it now because it's like, yeah, that's another thing. But anyway, yes, you're right. So what happened was they sent me to another place like that before, and it was very early on. And what happened? I actually had some money, and I had a very good attorney. They were not going to let me out of this jail. I just kept paying this attorney another $1,000 to put another hearing, another $1,000 to put another hearing. Well, it finally worked. They sent me to a place called the Renewal Center in Pittsburgh, where it's just similar. Like, they're going to let you out after some time. You could go get a job. Now, the other crazy part of this is that this was for punching a sheriff. That's what I got in trouble for. The sheriff claimed that I punched him during his stop at me while I was supposedly roughing up another person. So with that being said, it took a long time before I could get out. It took 18 months.
They don't look kindly on allegations of sheriff punching.
That's not, No.
And my uncle's a sheriff. Couldn't help at all. So what happened was I spent about 18 months in, and then I finally got the detaining judge we convinced them to let me out to go to Renewal Center. Now I go to Renewal Center, and I find out while I'm in Renewal Center, because I have access to more information, that there's not even a case happening. I'm in limbo, like political prisoner. And I'm talking to this person at this Renewal Center, and I'm saying, what are we going to do about this? And he's like, I ain't doing nothing. What do you mean? And I'm like, well, I need to go talk to my attorney. And they're like, you're not allowed. I'm not allowed to talk to my attorney about not having a court date coming up because not one scheduled. What do you think? So, the reckless me, I'm like, you realize you let me out of here every day, right? What did you think the next thing was going to happen was going to be, right? You're not going to tell me I'm here indefinitely and you let me out the door every day. I'm gone. I'm out. Bye.
Right,
we'll figure this out, because I guarantee if I run, there's going to be a court hearing.
Good point.
So I was on the run for a while. It lasted a little while, and then they had me on Crime Stoppers, and I was still doing my thing, which is crazy, because I would leave from a bar after just dropping something off, and they'd be right behind me. I'm leaving, and they're coming in. Because I would get
behind, like in the movies.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I would get phone calls like, they were just here, and I'm like, screw them.
So somebody would call on you or something? You think somebody was calling on you, or how would they know?
I was on the news.
Okay.
Wanted, and they label it as escape because you're technically an inmate. So that, but they don't give there's no context.
Right.
So they put you on the news as a prisoner escapee,
right?
And for assault on an officer, that looks pretty
right.
It looks pretty crazy, So I had a girlfriend, and
air quotes for the listeners on the radio.
Yes.
What was that, Mike? I didn't hear you.
Air quotes for listeners.
Oh yeah, air quotes. Yes.
And her mom took advantage of the situation because there was a reward.
Oh, geez. Wow. That sucks.
So when they came really heavy, like
I'd imagine.
no joke, heavy. I mean,
There's a
I'm
convict
not
here with my daughter.
helicopters, like
Wow.
the helicopters. I seen the helicopter with the light, and I was like, what the, like,
Oh, man. Yeah.
and then they come in the house with the dogs. They knew exactly who they were looking for, and yeah, there was drugs, but they didn't even care about that. They were there for me. Like they didn't care about nothing else. So yeah, that was one of those crazy ass times because, on the news, in the context that they put me on the news, it was like, woo.
They
Lucky I
treated
didn't
you
get
like
killed.
Trump. They treated you like Trump at Mar-a-Lago, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had all that top secret documentation. Didn't
I'm
you?
sorry to drag you back into that story. I just didn't want to pass up on that one. So at this point, you had just left jail for the last time. On the way out, did any of the guards or anything notice a difference in you? The last time you were in jail, did anybody notice that, hey, maybe it's different this time?
Well, I can't imagine that they did. I mean, again, being in there so often, you get a reputation, you talk to people, you can talk to them like they don't typically talk to guys like another guy. You're just a piece of, you're a piece of jerk to them. Like they don't care.
Right.
But I mean, like they would kind of hold a conversation with me because I would fight, and they kind of respected that. So like they would kind of look out in a way too, where like they'll make you a worker. You're not locked in as much, all this stuff. So you get the kind of personal level with them where you'll just kind of bullcrap with them for a little bit. So but the point is that what I was getting to is that I was making that decision to stop and seeing how that was being beneficial in some ways. So same situation. I got in trouble. I got sent back. You're supposed to max out. It was 1 to 2 years, and I'm supposed to max out. I'm looking at another 9 months. You can tell if you're going to max out because after the first couple times that they petition for your parole, if they don't grant it, you're done. You're staying. You get 2-3 months in a row where they're like, no, you're staying for the rest. And they're supposed to do that once a month just to check in with the judge. You want to let them go yet? No. You want to let them go yet? No. Right. And that's every 30 days. Now, 2 weeks before that, right around the time when I was like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore and all that stuff, they had already denied me. So I was under no illusions that I was going to get out anytime soon. And the counselor that was in the jail called into the pod and told the officer to send me out into the hallway, which is typically strange when you see it because it's not something that happens. Like you don't just get called out in the hallway, right?
What's going on in the hallway?
Yeah, like people that tell on people get called into the hallway, because they're going to talk to the detectives or whatever, That
doesn't look good to the people around you too, then.
Oh, I don't care what they think. They already know what it is. But I mean, it still doesn't look good. It still doesn't look good. It's kind of off. It puts off. But I go out and the counselor's standing there and she's looking at me and I'm like, I talked the one CO that was there. I forget his name, but I asked him, what's up, man? He's like, she wants to talk to you. So I just looked at her and she was like, I refiled your parole paperwork 2 days ago. And I was like, but didn't we do that a couple of weeks ago? We got to do it every 30 days. And she was like, yeah, I did it again. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, then I called the judge's tip staff. And I'm just like, what are we getting at here? Like, she's like, I told them that they should let you go because I doubt you're ever going to come back. She didn't know me from nothing.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
And I just looked at her and I'm like, what? like, why would you say that? Like, I mean, you don't know that. Like, what the hell? I don't. Yeah. And then the thought starts crossing my mind. She's like, you're going to leave in the next 1 to 2 days. You're going home.
Wow.
I'm like, I don't have a home.
Did you have a relationship with her? Like you had met with her a little bit before, or you didn't really know? No.
Nothing other than just file my paperwork, please.
That's interesting.
Okay. So like I begin to tell her that, and the CEO is like, shut up. Really? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, he's like, if you tell her that you ain't got nowhere to go, they're not going to let you go.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. I can't wait to go home. Yep.
Which is great.
Yeah. Yep. I can't wait. I got a house. I can't wait to take a shower in my shower. Right. I think I have a shower.
Yeah. Did her belief in you do something internally, like in that moment? Did her belief in you, like, was she instilling in you, like, that she sincerely believed that for some reason that you weren't coming back? Did that have an impact
Did you
on you
almost like feel
internally?
like you owed it to her to,
Yeah,
to
right.
not let her
Yeah.
down because she went out on a limb like that?
I more attribute this to God working through people more than people working to, because there's,
right.
Unless she's some kind of stalker that I was unaware of, watching my every move.
Yeah, how would she know otherwise?
And he's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into Mike G in the morning. This would be a great time.
It was so clear and smooth. It was.
What do we
so
say?
clear.
Smash? What'd your niece say? Smash the like button?
Smash.
Hulk smash.
Hulk smash.
Hulk smash the like button. The suspense, though, the suspense when he disappears, it's,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the perfect time to.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a second.
I didn't know Stacks had all this stuff in his background. It's pretty fascinating. Yeah, knowing how well he's doing now, like I would have never known.
Rusty says, "Sniff the like button's hair."
Sniff it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please.
Okay, we got him.
Take the opportunity to do so. All right. Cool.
All right, we got you back. So you're saying?
Sorry, man. I don't know what's going on. I got
right.
fine.
It's well worth it. Well worth it.
Where'd I cut out at?
You were saying that you attribute it more to God working through people.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, I mean, because again, I don't know. There's no way she would have known firsthand anything that I can guarantee you she knew that I was doing stuff in the jail that I wasn't supposed to be doing, because that's easy to figure out, right? How are you high all the time?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but other than that, I really don't know, man. I don't have any, I have nothing else to attribute it to. I wish I had a better answer that she's seen something in me. I just believe it's God working through people.
And how long you in at that point? You were there for how many months consecutively when you got let go that time, your last time?
Probably 17, 18 months, something.
Okay. It's a long time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Before there was a few times before that where it was really, especially that time with the sheriff's deputy, they tried to bury me. Go ahead.
So ultimately you ended up getting out this time?
Yes. Straight to the street, which was not typical for somebody in my position. Usually they want to put you in a place to keep an eye on you for a while first,
It's interesting.
So yeah, I went straight to the street, and I had very lucky to have a cousin, Kelly of mine. She, her and my Aunt Judy have been instrumental in helping me, because I didn't even have clothes, nothing. You got to imagine you're running the streets for all these years, and you may have set up somewhere, but you're going away for a while. There's nothing out there left. You don't have anything left anywhere. So, and if she's watching this, her Aunt Judy, I love you guys. Thank you.
I understand Aunt Judy's got a pretty serious reputation in the community as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. She's very she's helped a lot of people. She's helped a lot of people through some hard times. And she's been through a lot of stuff herself. So she may not even know how much, but I'll tell you, the lady just plugs away. That's what she does. She just plugs away. She's constantly trying to help somebody or give advice, or even when you don't want to hear it, she's just constantly doing that. So, yeah, I mean.
Kelly's got a message from you. I'm so amazed by you. Love you.
Yeah. So, I mean, without that beginning, it would have been really, really hard. I don't know where I would have been without them, but luckily there was a place. So Kelly helped me out. She put me up in a place that she ended up owning at some point, which was a house. And I got to stay there for a while. And the whole idea was that I kind of listened to them for a long time about what to do next. And most of that was just staying away from people, places, and things where I got in trouble. And my whole thing was doing the next right thing. That was my personal motto, that it was easy for me to sell myself on the idea that I could do this and it wouldn't hurt anybody else and I could get over. I can do that. I can. Anybody can do that, right? Like, I mean, you can you give me enough time, I'll justify robbing a bank. You know what I mean? Like, but I know that that's not the right thing to do. So it was always do the next right thing. Try to become a better person. That eventually evolved into don't lie, cheat, and steal. Like, when I followed those 3 things, a tremendous amount of opportunities came ahead. And
awesome.
one of the first jobs I had when I first got home, I've never been so thrilled. For $8 an hour to gut houses, I walked there with an axe.
Wow.
So you got to explain that a little bit more. I walked to a house with an axe for $8.
You're lucky to get picked up on the side of the road. Excuse me, sir. Where are you?
How did that happen?
So again, it was one of Judy knew them. I kind of knew them, but I didn't know them enough. There was a couple. I went to school with the husband of the couple. We were never really on great terms. We just kind of knew each other. But though his wife was a real estate agent and they were flipping houses. So I think she'd done this with a bunch of people where, like, you just needed money and, you didn't want to do something crazy to get it. So, like, bare minimum, $8-10 an hour. And she would always have a place that kind of need gutted in some way. And after spending all that time in jail, I have to say I was immensely strong. I mean, I look back on it now, and I think I must.
You got jail,
man.
Got one?
No joke. I mean, because I remember ripping through these houses and people watching me like, what's wrong with him? You know what I mean? Like, I found an axe in one of the places, and it was a fireman's axe. I still actually have it. It's in my basement.
Cool.
And that's what I used to tear everything down. And it got to the point pretty quickly where what I did was I would just it's lath and plaster, most of these houses. So I would just rip it all down, and then they allowed me to hire a couple people to kind of work under me in a way. I don't really want to put it that way, but I would tell them what to do. And I would rip it all down, ceilings, walls, everything would be a pile of stuff. And that's it. Okay, you take this, there's big 55-gallon buckets, fill them up, put them in a dumpster, and I'm going to the next room.
Wow.
So you demoed a house with your bare hands and an axe.
Yeah, for a while. And I was happy. I was thrilled to be able to do that. I really was. Just the fact that I knew I could make some money without getting myself in trouble.
Right.
I was thrilled. I really was.
That's awesome, though, that motivated you.
Yeah.
So did you ever run into anybody from the old crew or anything like that when you got out and you were doing things the right way?
All the time. Yeah.
Really? So what's that like? What are those conversations like? Because I'm sure they're just not like, oh, good for you, man. Stay out of trouble.
Right. Sure
no, some of them actually were. Most people that are getting high want to not get high. Yeah. It's a painful cycle. Yeah. It's not an easy one to get out of. And it's a lot easier to go get it fixed than it is to go through months of pain and agony. And the guy last week really touched on it, and I've used this all the time. It's like, they tell you only have to change one thing. It's everything. And if you can imagine what that would be like, if you had to change everything in your life right now, just imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah, it would suck. It would be hard.
I've been trying to get Russ to do that, but sorry, Russ.
So yeah, I mean, like, that's what it was like. But I mean, like, I never really got anybody nobody tried to force anything on me. There was always an opportunity if I wanted it, but I would always kind of get this look of like, like they were striving for what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, maybe you motivated some of them to get healthier or better. Yeah, hopefully. I
like to think I've heard of a few people re-speak some of the stuff that I said. So I mean, not that I'm anybody great, but I mean, like, I'd like to think that I, in some way, at least for a short time, maybe help somebody, Do
you know of other friends from the past, whether you met them in, when you were behind bars or out, out from your personal life that have transitioned as well as you have, or have come, into a more positive situation?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I know a whole bunch of people that we ran the streets with, and there's a whole bunch of them that are great people now. I mean,
awesome.
Like they changed. They did what it took. It happened.
I guess it just really comes down to whether or not you're ready, right? You think that's it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like anything else. Do you want it or not? You know what I mean? it's just that you got to put in the work. You got to do it. Like, it's not easy, but what's the alternative?
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of misery out there if you want to keep it. Like you can just keep going back. There's all kinds of pain and misery if you enjoy that.
Right.
But I mean, or you just push, get it done. Like just do what it takes. I was just tired of being a scumbag. You know what I mean? Like, it really started to boil down to that. Like, I didn't respect myself. I couldn't look in the mirror. I didn't want to be a piece of shit. And what do you get out of that? Like, if by the time it's all said and done, nobody even cares if you're dead.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Good point. Right.
Yes, that's the truth when you're in that lifestyle, for sure. So,
well, I think that's why a lot of people in that situation ultimately, too many of them end their life. Yeah.
So where do you go from demoing houses with your bare hands and an axe? Because clearly you don't still do that today. It's not like and 10 years later, I have the bare hand and axe demo company.
We need to set that up sometime.
Yeah. A brawny guy. I'm still at it. No, what actually happened is that there was a friend of mine that I grew up with when I was much younger, before all the craziness. He kind of dabbled in it, but he didn't get real wild. He had a contracting company with a local real estate agent, and he brought me in. It went to $20 an hour, and he gave me a van and gave me all the tools. Like, I just seen him one day walking to work with the axe, and he's like, "Hey man, what you been up to?" It's like, he hasn't seen me in a while, and I probably don't look exactly like the old version of me. So, he was like, we were talking, and he's like, "I got a job for you." And I was like, "Well, doing what?" He was like, "We're going to remodel." I was like, I just looked at him, and I was just being honest, because I put myself in his position, and it's like, here's a dude that is constantly in trouble, that, like, if you try, he might burn you, like, who knows? I said, I don't have any tools. I don't have a car. I don't have any tools. I have no way to get there. So, like, I appreciate you trying to help, but, like, I just don't have a way to do it. He said, I got a van for you. I said, you got a van for me? He was like, I'll give you the van. We'll knock it off weekly, so much till it's paid off. Wow. And there's secondhand tools in the van. You're going to have to buy your own stuff as time goes on. So, that was a big help too.
Sure.
I thanked him for that a while ago when I seen him again, when I celebrated some time clean. I think it was like 5 years. I was like, you helped a lot in this, and you may not realize it, and you may have did it for your own reasons, but you helped a lot. Like, I mean, because just being able to build on that is a big deal. And so, like, that was something I did for a while too. I did into that.
But do you think one of the reasons he was willing to take a chance on you is that he saw the initiative that you had? I mean, a guy who's walking to jobs that he's doing with an axe and his bare hands, what that says to me is this is a guy who doesn't make excuses. He's willing to work his ass off and do whatever it takes. Because how many people would not be willing to go there with their bare hands and an axe on foot in order to do this? I'd say I'd venture to say most people who just got out of jail, have no house, have no car, have no tools, are going to make, I don't want to say excuses, because it's really above and beyond what you did. So do you think that him seeing that in you and saying, hey, this is a guy who's going to do whatever it takes to get it done, I see something that shows promise here, and that's why I'm willing to take a chance?
I mean, Mike, it could have played a role. I don't know. I keep saying, and I believe this, that, like, yeah, sure, that could have played some part, but I think it's God working through people. I do. I don't. I mean, listen, you have to understand too that, like, he had no reason to evaluate me on that level at that time.
That's
true.
What
I mean?
That's true.
Maybe hearsay, hey, he's running the streets again, he's doing okay right now. Maybe, but, like, he's not going to know my mindset. And I just met him at the store, I mean, it's entirely possible that he thought about giving me a hand up, knowing that, like, maybe that's the thing. He's not a dumb person. So, like, he could have thought that, but I just always tend to attribute that that is God working through some people.
That makes sense. So if that was the thought process, it was put on his heart from God, because he could have just as easily thought that, had it be a fleeting thought, and say, well, yeah, he's also been in and out of jail for the last 20 years, so he doesn't exactly have a long and great track record, even if this is what he's doing today.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you go from there? You end up in that spot where you got the van, you got the tools. What happens next?
Well, I worked with him for a while. And through that, like, I always kind of knew electrical work, but I just really just kind of did like restorations, stuff like that. But I was always interested in electrical work because they got paid the most and got the least dirty.
Right.
You know what I mean? I started to try to educate myself more and more. I had some friends that were in that field that were very good electricians that I worked with from time to time that taught me some stuff, and I was still not very knowledgeable enough to do some stuff, but not, I wouldn't have called myself an electrician at the time. And through just sheer luck, a friend of mine said that there was an opening at this electrical company. I'll kind of leave their name out of it because it kind of gets a little, but there was an opening and he kind of plugged me into it. And the long and short of that is that there's a thing that's called the Davis-Bacon Act. And what that means is that you get prevailing wage. If you go to a job that's federally funded, they have to pay you that rate. It's in their contract. So we were working on projects, and it's a prevailing wage job. They're actually townhouses. We call them projects. It's assisted housing, and as we were doing that, there's signs hanging all over the place saying you should be making prevailing wage, blah, blah, blah. And I worked with them for a while. I finished the job, and we had jobs before that. So the whole time I'm telling them, like, you have to be paying us more. That's part of the deal. And they're like, no. So I'm like, well, you're just kind of hanging yourself because all I have to do is make a phone call and to the labor board. And I tried to keep giving them a chance, and they didn't want to pay. Like, the office of this place was just, they were like crooks, like they didn't care. So I made the call. I called the labor board, and they came out.
Wow.
And I spoke to them. And now for them to determine the prevailing wage, they had to contact the local union hall to get what we should have been getting paid.
Right.
Through them talking to the local hall, the hall wanted to contact us. I talked to the guy from the hall, really, really nice guy. I had no idea I was at a job interview. I didn't know. I thought he was asked questions.
Right.
I just, I was just like, he'd like, hey, would you want to meet? Because the idea is that he was helping me get that money that they owed me. And they weren't going to be paid their last draw, which is their last check before the job got done, until they could prove that they paid us. So the 3 or 4 meetings I had with this rep from the union hall, it was actually a job interview that I didn't know I was taking. So he would like ask me these questions. And then, by the time, in short order, he said, you should come down and take the test. And I'm like, the test for what? What do you mean? Like, he's like, well, we'll get you in. We'll bring you in. And I'm like, I still can't.
Like, hold on a minute.
Yeah, I mean, like, in the what? You know what I mean? Like, right. And like, this is huge for me. I mean, for me, this is the major leagues at that time. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting into the union. You gotta. That's sort of the big leagues in that trade. Now, and it's not. It might not be to some people, but for me, in the position I was in and where I came from, and all the things that come. I mean, that's about as good as it was ever going to get.
Right. Plus, you get consistent work, benefits, better pay, right?
The benefits.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, man, listen, if these benefits wouldn't be what they were,
Right.
Like,
your daughter.
Open heart surgery, 2 of them. So, it works. Like I said, people working through God, right? Like, these people, I think it's God working through these people, because as time goes on, this stuff becomes more evident to me. But anyway, he pulled me in. I like the hashtag.
Stacks with an axe.
There we go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop.
That's good.
So, they pulled me in, and I took a test. A week later, I was on the first union job.
Wow. Awesome.
They gave me a ticket, signed me in. They swore me in. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, it was like happening so fast. Like, I was, I'm like, it's so nuts. And not to get too far ahead, but just to explain even further, like, as I was reaching that point, I'm still on probation, right? Technically on a parole. but it's a parole supervised through the probation. And the lady, I hope she's watching this. I really do. I hope she sees it. I still have her phone number. I might send her the link.
Yeah, send it out.
I still talk to her from time to time. She's great. Again, this is another one of those things I have to attribute, and I have to say this part so that it's on the record, is that she called the judge once I reached. So, like, I worked for a certain amount of time with the union. We were getting 401k, and I owed a tremendous amount of money, thousands of dollars, to restoration, whatever the fine. Thank you. That was for the victims that they said, and court costs and fines and all that stuff. And you technically can't get off probation until those are paid. So the money I made that was going into my 401k, I pulled it out and paid that, the thousands of dollars with that. And because I called her one day and I said, how much do I owe? She's like, 5,000, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, I wrote it down, and I came back in a week later with a money order for that amount. And she just looked at me and was like, where did you get this money? And I'm like, well, I pulled it out of my 401k. I was like, this is money that's owed to people that I owe. And here.
That's awesome.
So she went above and beyond after that. She called the judge when she's never done anything like this before. She's a vet. She's a probation officer with a vet, 20-something years. She's probably close to 30 years if she's still working at this point. Called them, told them to let me off probation.
Wow.
And they did.
That's pretty awesome.
That's amazing.
Another person intervening.
Yep.
Yeah, it's strange
cool,
because you started off in life having nobody, right? And then you have this series of people who, you said God working through people, and you end up, each one of them plays this small role in your life that helps you get that much further. Whether it's Kelly or Aunt Judy or the counselor in jail or your friend that you ran into or the officer. It's pretty incredible. Did you have to take any tests or anything like that when you got into the union?
Well, they gave me a couple written exams. That's what I did. I took 2 of those, and for me, it was very basic. I knew the stuff, so I just answered the questions, and I kind of aced that without any kind of issues. So I think that's what really kind of sealed the deal. They were just like, here you go.
Knows his stuff.
I knew enough. Let's put it that way. I mean, I knew enough for them to do it.
The black wire is the one you always put in your mouth, right, Stacks?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Ear to ear.
Right, there you go. Right.
Black, white,
Right.
They're kidding. Don't try this at home, kids.
Right.
Yeah, don't do that.
Sorry.
And then at what point do you end up with a family?
I mean, it was the same sort of chain of events type of thing where, like, I was working on a job site. I became friends with one of the carpenter guys. He's a fighter. He we went to a couple boxing matches of his. And when he friended me, I'm not on Facebook anymore. I really can't stay on Facebook. But I was on Facebook at the time, and he friended me on Facebook. And if you know how Facebook works, when you friend with somebody, they kind of start showing you all their friends. Well, my wife now happened to be one of his friends on Facebook. And we started talking through like the DMs, and I took her out, and just kind of developed from there. Like, she got pregnant kind of early, and I just made a deal. Like, we're not doing abortion. I'm totally against it. I cannot, I can't do it. Like, I mean, it's not something I'm going to live with. And she was willing to give it a shot. And then we just kind of started to set some goals, and we were like, let's give it 5 years and see what happens. Cool. So, long story short, it's been more than 5 years, and we got 3 kids.
God bless you guys. God bless
Awesome.
you guys. God working through people, right?
Yeah, there you go. 3 more people.
I mean, again, that's definitely God working again in my favor through people, because my wife and kids are the biggest blessings that ever happened to me. They, by far, there's no comparison. My every decision and move that I make are because I'm trying to make sure they're okay.
Good.
And how is that when you meet somebody when you're on the other side of all this, explaining to them, oh, I know I'm a good guy now, but let me tell you a few things real quick.
I mean, my honest opinion is that I'll tell you the truth, and Kelly's watching and she can tell you this, like the one thing I can't stand is when people lie.
Right.
Just tell the truth. It really is just that freaking simple. Like it just is what it is. Like, and they're not going to change anything by lying about it. You're probably just going to make it worse. So cards on the table. This is what it is. Like I'm not beating around the bush. I was a scumbag. I was, and I'm trying not to be anymore.
That's amazing.
That's all I can say. That's all I can do. That's the best I can do.
I could just picture being on a date with somebody and they're like, you look awfully familiar. I don't know where I know you from.
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers.
Right, that's right. I remember. I was like, that cute guy
unfortunately.
on the
TV. You're famous.
Yeah.
You just said something kind of profound, I think, where you said you're trying to be a good guy, but in my eyes, based on everything you've shared, you've achieved that. But maybe your secret to continuing to be successful is the fact that you look at it as you're still trying, like you're still.
Because even if you go back 5 years, you had 5 years of success under your belt at that point. All right, that's no joke.
No, well, while I appreciate what you're trying to say and thank you, in my mind, I will never arrive there.
Well, that's important. I think that's interesting for me to hear you say that, because I think that's an important thing for people listening to realize. That's probably a big key to your success, because you're not resting on your laurels. You're not like, oh, I made it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can party a couple times. Maybe I can have a few drinks. Maybe I can let go. And you're not doing.
Well, I mean, the truth. I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that I in my head I can tell myself that I can, but what is the risk reward, right? Like, it's not worth it.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, it's just not. There's no amount of alcohol or feeling associated with alcohol or drugs that's going to make me want to risk going back.
Yep.
It's just not worth it. Like, I mean, I've already done it. Like, I already know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
I already know how it feels. Like when you've run the gauntlet of all these things already, it's like, there's no surprises left.
Right.
So like, I already know. I think I've been there, done that. And, I know what's going to happen. So we're just not gonna,
Have you ever done any motivational speaking or anything like that? Because I think that kids who are at an impressionable age would really benefit from hearing this kind of a story.
Not really when I was active in NA early on, I actually went back to one of those treatment facilities not too long after they had let me out. And the CEO was like, what are you doing here? But I mean, because they ask for that, like they'll ask every once in a while for you to share what you've been through, but I mean, other than that, not really. I mean, to be honest, when I share this, it's kind of like, I'm not proud. I'm not proud of any of it. Sure. It's like, now that I know how easy it could have been to just not do that, it's shameful in a way, where like I chose to be a scumbag for so long. And all I had to do was just not do that. And people would pat me on the back every once in a while and say, hey, you're doing really good. I'm like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. This is, thank you. Right. Like, I mean, thank you. I know what you're trying to say, but like in my mind, it's like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, what everybody should probably do. Right. Like, don't be a scumbag.
Well, you say that, but there are people who make all kinds of excuses in their life who don't have nearly the hurdles and the obstacles that you had, from being 8 and 9 years old with zero food in the house, with zero parental figures, a mother who is addicted to drugs, a father who's living in a bar, no electricity, no guidance or supervision, not being fed, being physically and emotionally, verbally abused. I mean, come on, like somebody who's been through all that from such a young age and gets wrapped up in this life of crime because that's the only semblance of family you've got.
Right.
To that point in your life, I mean, there are people who make excuses based on a whole lot less, don't you think?
Yeah, those are pretty
And
valid.
that's I'm not even asking you, don't you think? Because that's a fact.
Yeah,
I don't care
right.
what you
Yes,
say.
right.
Yeah. There's no, you can't argue that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's something to be acknowledged that you've overcome all of that, and having gone through hell and back, coming out on the other side and making that conscious decision to go a different path. I mean, you can't overlook that.
I don't, again, like I don't. It's just, and this is, I think maybe this is just a pillar that it's God. It's God showing me a path.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to have a decent life? Do you want to be a man that can look at himself in the mirror? Do you want to be somebody that somebody else could look up to at any point?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that and do the things that you were doing before. And I think that's, I think that's the only way I can describe it, is that this is what you have to do. This is what I have to do. I don't, there's no other option for me. I mean, I'm lucky to be alive. Like, there's no, the amount of Russian roulette that was played, literally and figuratively, like with these types of things, that, like, I want it to matter at some point.
Yeah, it's good. That makes sense.
I want it to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I have to go through this to tell a story to stop somebody else, I'll take that. But it's just one of those things where, like, I don't have any other explanation. It has to be through God. Like the old sayings where, like, steel sharpens steel, and you need heat to create a hard blade, and all those. That's what this is. That's what this is.
Mm.
Kelly says, "Thank you for allowing God to work on you."
Yeah.
Hashtag you did that. That's true.
That's a good hashtag.
Right? It's like the old story of the guy who's in the middle of the storm and he's standing on his roof and the flood's coming up, and God sends him the lifeboat and the helicopter, and he won't take it. So, there's certainly something on your part with accepting God's help, and you've put in a lot of work that, that we certainly acknowledge that. Of course, all the glory goes to God, number one. But there are a lot of people who don't get there. And give Kelly a hey now, Philly Chris.
Hey now, Kelly.
Hey now. Hey now.
Yeah, we do have free will.
Yeah, but no, thank you for sharing.
Liberty, did you have a question or anything like that? I hear you piping into my.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I know he's really busy with his micro farm, or is it a mini farm? Micro farm?
I mean, I usually say micro, but I mean, it's really just.
But I was just going to say, I know you're busy with that, but everything you just said, like, we could literally take this and make you a speaker to help kids. I mean, even just being so straightforward in the way that you say it, you're not trying to really teach, you're just explaining what it is. Like, you're describing the why. A lot of people with these degrees and different things, they can't explain the why. And I feel like you explain that really, really well, just like with that mindset. And I think you can help a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, if that would be the price to pay for the pain that started off, that I could help somebody else, again, I'd be willing to pay that. I'm good with that.
Because even in the beginning, you said, with your parents, and there was like a moment where you thought they didn't care. And that's when you said, if they don't care, then I don't care.
Sure.
And it was like, how many kids feel like that out there? And they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with that. So they do exactly what you did. So, I feel like if you could, you're way further along, but if your story can inspire them, you can teach them what, instead of having to go through the hardships and go through the way you did 12 times in and out of prison, it can move it along quicker for them. They might not have seen that. You have a really strong motivation, personal motivation.
That's a really excellent point. So if, young Jason Stack, who just saw that report card on the top of the fridge, is sitting in the school auditorium one day, and Jason Stack of 2022 walks in, gets on the stage and tells his story, does that have an impact on the young Jason Stack who doesn't understand why he should care?
You know, maybe, but to be honest, it's the way I look at this whole situation, the way I kind of rationalize all of it is that who would I be without going through what I went through? Who would I be? Would I be the guy that's actually trying to be the best person that he can be? Because I fall short as as much as anybody else does. But like, would I be the guy that strives for that every decision?
Right.
That's really what I'm. And I hate
That's
to
a
make
good point, but
like,
it also could have ended.
It could have.
Yeah.
Very
It could
poorly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This could be something that 15 years ago, Jason Stacks no longer alive. I mean, how easily could that have happened?
I can
Millions of
at least
times,
have,
right?
yeah, at least half a dozen times, literally right
Mm-hmm.
by my head, like that
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah, definitely beat the odds. Definitely beat the odds.
I mean, there was all kinds of crazy. I mean, stuff that we can't talk about. You know what I mean? Like, there
Right,
was all
yeah.
kinds of stuff that happened around. That's just, it's
Let's talk about something we definitely should not talk about.
let's not get anybody else in any extra trouble.
Yeah, no, we don't need to
God
do that.
puts certain people on a path
Yeah.
for a reason. I mean, he has a purpose for every single life. So he had a purpose for you to go through this. And it might be to just say the right thing that you would have never been able to say to somebody. I mean, even just through this video, whether you do it, live speaking motivational events, or whether it's just through videos or this video, you never know. I mean, somebody can just hear that one thing that they've never heard before that can make them change.
Yeah.
I had, this is a separate situation, but I once had a girlfriend, when I use that term loosely, that I met. She was a drug and alcohol counselor in the jail when I met her. And she gave me her phone number when I was getting released, and we followed up after jail. And again, these are these crazy stories that I don't
Right.
but she said to me one time, even back then, that like, you should write a book about the stuff that's happened, because the stories are a whole lot crazier, and there's a lot of stuff that we never even touched on because it's just just too much.
It's because we only have 2
Part
hours
two?
right now.
Yeah, right.
Part two.
That's amazing.
No, you should write a book. I mean, you've been through a lot, and yeah, I mean, your story is quite compelling. Honestly,
Yeah.
I knew you
That
from the
was
show a
amazing.
little bit, but I didn't know that you had this background, and I wouldn't have suspected that based on your success and what I've known about you. But it did make you who you are. So yeah, I think that's important for us all to recognize, as we're all here as a result of every day that we lived in the past for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So if there is a teenager who's clicking through YouTube and happens to listen to this, and they hear this story, and they're in a similar position as you were, where they've got parents who are abusive or absent or negligent and are not involved with their well-being and furthering their education and their future or youth sports, and they sort of feel like nobody cares and they don't have a reason, what would you tell somebody in that situation today? What would be the message you'd have for that kid who's watching?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's probably not a phrase that would cover every kid's dilemma. But what it really would boil down to is, I mean, it's just as simple as that. There's a path full of pain. You can choose to take it or not. It's up to you. I mean, you always have a choice. Always. You might not like the choice. It might not be something you enjoy in the beginning, but you always have a choice. And one of them choices typically revolve around a lot of pain. And if you're already heading down that path of pain and misery and degradation, then you can jump off of that whenever you want. You just gotta do it. Like, it's really just that. Like, I mean, it's really not any more complicated, but it's not any more easy either. Like, it sounds like just stop, right?
Yeah.
But you gotta want it. And that's where, like, the pain, once you reach that level of, like, then when you felt like you've had enough, that's whenever you can typically take that step off that path. But without it, you're just going to keep consequences change people.
Mhm.
And how much consequences do you want before you're willing to change? And sometimes people don't change.
Right.
There's really no shortcut, right?
No.
Because
Mm.
you got to walk on foot with an axe and rip down a house with your bare hands. If you gotta do what you gotta do to, be in
What
light.
other choice was there? It was walking with an axe, or you're gonna go back to jail or dead. That's the choice.
Right.
Like that's it.
A lot of people choose that though, Jason.
Yeah. Oh, I get
Right.
it. I get it.
Mhm.
But that's
A
what
lot
I'm
of
saying.
people say, I don't feel like walking to a job site and ripping down a house with my hands and an axe in the heat for $8 an hour. A lot of people say, you know what, I ain't doing that. I'm gonna go find something to steal or some drugs to sell or somebody to rob or whatever it is.
The way you described it, it was like a transition. I could visualize you in the house getting that, that anger and that energy and that, that past maybe out, through that labor.
It was a test every day to see how far I could get till I got tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how important do you think it was having like one lifeline, just like one person, like you said, your aunt, I believe it was it your aunt you said?
Aunt Judy.
Or somebody that was Aunt Judy. Yeah. Aunt Judy. Like, what if somebody didn't have anybody? Just if we're being real about it, what if somebody had nobody? Should they look for somebody? Like what, if you're in your exact position and didn't have Aunt Judy, well, first of all, I guess how important was Aunt Judy in that process? And then what if somebody doesn't have an Aunt Judy? Are there any answers?
Yeah, well, there's always, so like when it came to NA, the thing about NA is that there's always somebody that's going to be there if you're looking for help, right? And there's always all kinds of programs and things like that if you're looking for help. It's all about the work you put in, though. Like, it's not just going to fall in your lap. Like, it's not just going to be here, you're good, like,
Right.
so you have to want it. That's what I always try to reiterate, is that like, you have to want it. You have to want it on a level that you're willing to sacrifice to get it. It's not going to be easy. Nothing about it's going to be easy. When you say change one thing, everything, guess what? It's not easy. Like it's kind of hard. It's why I said like the consequences and the pain, once it reaches a certain level, you almost are out of choices because you don't want that anymore. Which is why I think it's required. Like the pain and the misery is required. You need it to change, because if there was no pain, no misery, you'd be the same person all the time. It's the same thing as walking into a wall. You keep walking into the wall, it's still going to hurt. It's not going to change nothing. It's the misery, the pain, stubbing your toe, hitting your nose, banging your forehead. You're going to change course.
Sure.
You learn.
Well, this has been an incredible opportunity here for everybody to hear your story. I loved every minute of it. I really appreciate you being here with us, and I appreciate you being so open and honest about your story and sharing that with everybody. I think it's going to do a lot of people a lot of good. And I know that talking about a lot of that stuff probably wasn't easy. And I just really want to thank you on behalf of everybody who's a part of the program, and on behalf of the audience, who we call the Mike G in the Morning family, because we've got a really good group of people who tune into this program. So thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add kind of a plug.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm going to wear the Stacks Farmstead shirt on the program next week.
Heck yeah.
We're making a few new ones. I'll send you one out when we get them done.
I need to get one. I'll buy one.
I gotta wear. I should have worn it tonight. I didn't think to do
that. The idea is a YouTube channel, and originally it's called Stacks Farmstead. If the idea of it originally was that I wanted to document what we were doing to the property, to be able to relive it with my sons and my daughter, given, they're very young. And as I was doing that, it occurred to me that like, this is something that's sort of a niche, because like, I'm a city kid. I grew up on asphalt. I don't know nothing about this stuff. I'm learning on the way, I'm picking it up as I go. And it's interesting for me to learn more and more and more and sort of connect with nature. And I'll tell you, it's very therapeutic. Like doing these things, getting your hand in the dirt and understanding that your food doesn't have to come from a grocery store, and someday it might not.
Right.
You know,
So much healthier anyway, doing what you're doing.
it vastly is. Like, I mean, and then you really get to understand, like, you don't waste food when you grow it.
Right.
You don't, like when you pick it up off the shelf, it's different. Again, it's the same thing, right? Like when you earn the money, you don't spend it as quickly. You don't really earn it. It kind of just flies out. Same thing with food. Anyway, like that is sort of like what we're trying to do is just kind of build a small channel around that idea that like I'm learning on the fly as I go. And we're learning a lot, but if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, they'll start paying ad revenue. So it's sort of a goal for us to get to at some point, hopefully, if people find it interesting enough.
Let's drop the link to your channel in the chat over here so everybody can see it. And Russ, if you can make sure that those couple of minutes of the plug make it onto the air in the morning, that would be great as well. So that way, we'd have that crossover. Would you be able to do that, Stack? Just throw the link into. Oh, CB's asking. He might be able to drop in a link over there. The channel's called Stacks Farmstead.
Yeah.
All right, Stacks Farmstead. So good deal. CB said he's going to help you get to 1,000 subs.
There we go.
Nice. Thanks, CB. Appreciate it, buddy.
I got to catch up
CB,
with CB too. We love CB.
CB, the Stacks Farmstead producer.
That's right.
Good deal.
Any help's greatly appreciated. I just think it's just a goal we're working towards. It's not extremely important, but I think it'd be kind of cool to hit that milestone. Just another thing to work for.
100%. And we'd love to have you back on the program again sometime.
Yeah.
Anytime you want, man. Just let me know.
All right. Well, thank you. That's him, ladies and gentlemen. Jason Stacks Farmstead. Excellent
Awesome.
story.
Thank you,
We'll
Stacks.
catch you later. What a story.
Wow.
What a story.
Yeah.
Russ, you need to make sure that at the end of the aired portion, that number one, his little plug gets in there, and number two, you get on there and say, that is not the end of the story. You need to hop on over to YouTube and watch the remainder of the interview because it's 2 hours long. You got that, Russ?
He's having his pizza. He said yeah.
Right. How long have they been talking about the storm?
Yeah, a while. I mean, I'm not saying I agree necessarily. I'm just saying that is something, right? You've heard that too, right? People.
I've also heard that Trump is still the president. I've heard that.
Sure. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe.
But, well, if he is, he's doing an absolutely terrible job, and I'm never voting for him ever again.
Their argument, and I've talked to some people who follow the Q stuff real close, and they say, well, all of this is by design, and it's to put it out into the public eye so people can see it and feel the pain. Otherwise, they would have never believed it, right? That the 2,000 mules showed that, the election was,
Hold on,
it's
Chris.
called
Hold
2,000 asses.
Asses, I'm sorry. But,
asses.
That's now, I guess in some ways it sort of makes sense. I mean, sometimes you need
voter
to.
fraud, the voter fraud in 2,000 asses.
Right. Exactly. But, how far would you let the nation get this disheveled and dismantled and destroyed before you would pull the curtain and say, hey, guess what? So, and I think we're in a really precarious position right now
Give
globally.
me a break. Come on.
Guys.
Right.
I think Philly Chris, I wanted to ask him about he literally said things are going to get worse. And can I just lay the platform? Literally, they raided Trump's house. Biden is falling asleep and has no idea what's going on. They just gave $80 billion for the IRS. We have the inflation, the gas prices. Monkeypox has reached 10,000 cases. There's this new virus in China right now that has just come out and can cause some kidney damage or something. I mean, it is crazy, guys. And so when Philly Chris said, we had a prediction, we said, Philly Chris, what's your prediction? He said it's going to get worse. And that's when COVID was kind of calming down. And I remember thinking, and I think Mike, you were all having a discussion, and he was just like, guys, like this is going to get worse. And I was like, but no, it is calming down a little bit. But I don't know, Philly Chris, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, no, thanks, Liberty. I mean, I want to be wrong. I don't want to be right. You know, it's not about that for me. But I've read
homeschool
the
Will
situation.
Says that thing, nothing available when he tries to try this.
What is it? Yeah. Oh, the link. But
we gotta get homeschool Will on. We're gonna hear his take on it.
Wait, let me hear what Philly Chris has to say.
I think, I mean, if you look at the actions and the result of the actions, where you have to question what is their motivation, where are they trying to take this? And I think they are trying to destroy the middle class and destroy the economy and the currency. I mean, the U.S. dollars really it's one of its weakest points in history. And if there were ever a time in my lifetime or our lifetime when that could happen, you know, the next coming months and years, or I would put money on that to some degree. Not that I want it to happen, but the people who are in control right now of all of those key factors are pulling levers that are sending us directly into that abyss. I mean, it's almost too perfect of a storm, if you will. You can't do this by accident at this point.
No.
You know, there's not this many coincidences. This, statistically significant things are happening that are outside of the normal realm of possibility. You know,
you do realize that people who think that everything's fine and this is all part of the plan,
right,
and end up putting the other people in power. Easily,
well, and that could be psyops to keep people at bay. I think I mentioned that before.
Let's just watch the popcorn. It's all under control.
Right, and I hate to say it, but I think both political parties at this point are in on it, and they're taking direction from above. The people who are really behind the scenes, that most people don't know their names. Yo, homeschool.
Look who we got.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
You've got quite the setup there, young man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've got your own channel, don't you?
I don't have my own channel, but I do, some things here and there for my church. But
that's awesome.
That's great. That's great. So, what have you been up to? What's the life like in the daily life of a homeschool kid?
It's quite busy. There's a lot of things we're still working out with high school, but it's going.
What are you learning these days?
Right now I'm mostly focusing on my math, which is I don't really enjoy it, but at this point it's just kind of slow. I'm getting through it. But
if you don't like math, law school is typically a good option. You ever think about that?
That's what I'm thinking of doing. Yeah, honestly. Yeah. So debates, one of the things I've been working on too. So I've really been kind of I didn't really enjoy the evidence-based style where you're kind of just focusing on, okay, I have this evidence versus this policy that you're trying to pass, and this says that your policy doesn't work, or I don't really like that style. So I'm switching to like a new style, which is LD, which is just value debate, which is basically just, okay, you value this, okay, well, here's another perspective you can come at it from. And, maybe it changes a couple things, or maybe it will just kind of give people a different picture, and maybe even say why your point of view it's not really good, or it lacks in certain regards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's perfect for if you want to go to law school, because in the courtroom, a lot of times you got to be quick on your feet. You got to think in the moment, and you got to come up with something when maybe you don't have the exact answer. Maybe you don't know the exact case off your head, the exact rule, but you got to come up with something. So that sounds like that would be good for you. Enjoying your summer?
Yeah, for the most part. I just got done a Boy Scout meeting tonight, so that one will.
Cool. That is cool. How long you been in the Boy Scouts?
Let's see. So I joined as a tiger right before they added lion. So lion is kindergarten, so you had to be first grade to do it. And I was so hyped to do it when I was first grade. I think that was either 8 years ago or 7 years ago or something like that. And I was just so psyched to do it. And I was like, do I get to be an Eagle Scout? And my parents had to explain to me that there were ranks and I had to climb the ranks to get Eagle. So I'm working on my Eagle Scout project right now, which is pretty big right now for me. But yeah, it's one of my dreams. So,
That's cool.
hopefully
So
I
what are you
get
doing? What does
that.
that involve to do the project?
So I'm doing a 3D tour of my church, which is just it's Google Maps, but just imagine specifically of this church.
Oh, cool.
I know I'm meeting in a week or so to take drone shots of it with some of my friends, but yeah, that's the first step that'll hopefully set in motion a whole bunch of different things, which will definitely help me.
That is
Very
really cool.
Mm.
Are you doing any outdoor activities this summer?
Outdoor
Too hot
activities.
out there.
That's been pretty
I
hot,
did
yeah,
bike
yeah.
today, so that was good. I'm trying to keep out there, but other than that, it's been really, really busy. But
Yeah, it's also 9 million degrees, right? Maybe you wait till September to do some of the outdoor activity.
Yes, it is.
You get to go on vacation at all?
Yeah, I actually went to Sea Base, which, if anyone knows Boy Scouts, Sea Base is something that happens in Florida.
Cool.
So I went to the Florida Keys. I think it's right next to Key Largo. It's called Almirada.
Cool.
And it's a week camp. I spent 3 days on a boat in the Gulf. And so we had 2 separate crews that we went in. The other crew that was with me was in the Atlantic, and then the other crew was in the Gulf.
Cool.
So it was pretty fun. But then after we did that, then we went back onto base, and then we did some of the other snorkeling things that they had us do, which was really fun. They also offer scuba diving, which is also a really interesting thing. But yeah.
How cool is that? The water is just different out there, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
it
like
is.
anything you'll see out here.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's blue.
And when you went out on the boat, was there any fishing involved, or what did you guys do
Oh
out
yeah,
there?
definitely. So while we were sailing, we actually trolled a bit, and I was in charge of that for the most part. I had some of my other friends do it too, but nobody else really wanted to pitch in except one other person. So it was just me doing it for the most part, and then back and forth. But,
He
yeah.
is the most interesting man in the world. Homeschool Will out there fishing.
Homeschool Will, ladies and gentlemen.
How old are you, homeschool Will? How old are you?
15 now.
15. Wow.
Dude's
Looking forward to
fishing in the
driving? You
Florida
looking forward to
Keys.
driving?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I am. Yeah.
Are you a car guy? You're a car guy?
Oh, I mean, I was super into cars, and it's not that I'm not right now. It's just I'm not as enthusiastic about it. I still think it's really cool when I see a really nice car, but
What would you like if you could get anything?
If I could get anything, so I mean, having a car, it's so hard to choose because the market's constantly changing. There's new cars, and especially like kind of the market I'm looking at. That
I
market
think
would
he's
be.
saying. I think Chris is talking about if you didn't have to worry about the market or anything like that.
Yeah.
You just you had your pick.
Like your dream car.
Like you ever see Karate Kid?
Yes.
So remember when Mr. Miyagi takes Daniel-san out to the yard and he says choose, and he's got all the cars there. You can pick whichever one he wants. Let's say you were in that position and there was any car that you wanted. What would you pick?
I think that I would have a Lamborghini SVJ.
Nice.
Because it's a combination between a Huracan and an Aventador.
Well, see, you are a car guy. All right, I got it.
Yeah, that's very specific.
Yeah, you're a car guy. Yeah, cool.
McLaren. Russ says McLaren F1 LM.
Come on, that's a race car.
They're not really built. You know what? They're not really built that way anyway. The McLaren.
Yeah, McLarens aren't that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really not. The bodywork on them is horrible.
Yeah.
To have at home for a home.
You can do better.
Yeah.
You know, I only take the McLaren out when I don't have to impress anybody.
Exactly.
Some of them though, you open the door and it hits the
oh yeah.
Door.
Yeah.
What's yours, Philly Chris? What would you pick, Philly Chris?
Oh, I have mine.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
The Mazda Miata.
Yeah.
I
already have my dream car. It's an original Monster Miata. It's got 400 horsepower.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Liberty?
But yeah.
I thought you were only asking the guys. I was like, hey, I'm kidding. I'm really thinking like a feminist today. But to your point, I'm a GMC girl.
Yeah, you like the GMCs, don't you?
I
Yeah.
love GMCs. I always will love GMCs. I guess I would get the, a Denali. The big
Didn't
one.
you say that kind of stems from your grandfather, though?
Yeah, and I just like them. It is what it is. Like when I see other GMCs on the road, I like wave, and then they just look at me like, "What are you doing?" It's ridiculous. But I guess it's a silly answer. But that's like what I like and what I love. But if I had to get like a toy car, a Lamborghini probably. But I do like room. I don't know. I would like probably actually honestly a Bentley. I would go with a Bentley.
They're nice. Bentley's nice.
So let me get this straight. So GMC is more of your realistic dream car.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, I have a GMC. I'm a GMC gal, but I would get a Bentley for sure. I want room. I'm a tall girl. I don't like to feel squished. I don't like the door moving up and I'm squished in there. I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, Bentley's a good option for that.
Yes.
There you go.
Brian Harper.
McLaren. Is Brian old school Lamborghini?
Yeah. I always think of that one when you think of Lamborghini. That was an amazing car.
Yeah. Now I feel like a lot of the like supercar industry, they're now moving to naturally aspirated engines, which is just more air intake than turbos.
Yeah, I like naturally aspirated. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, me too.
They're a lot weaker. And
you
they
do
don't have as much power.
Totally.
But,
well, once you do turbo and all that stuff and
the
superchargers, you're really pushing the engines too.
I
like the feel of naturally aspirated.
I want to know when we're doing flying cars.
Yeah.
Oh, they have them already.
Flying cars.
Yeah.
Well, there's a flying car made by who is it?
There's one that just got released recently, actually.
The Jetson one. It's made with like a Tesla motor, but it only goes like 20 miles or something like that. So I'm going to fly to work to avoid all the traffic. The problem is I'll only make it halfway there.
Yeah. As soon as you take off, you need to make
an
emergency landing. But you know what's
sad is that's what happened to Kobe Bryant. I think like he took a plane like went, on a short route. I think helicopter to avoid traffic or something, and that's what happened. Yeah. With that kind of, things.
Didn't the Simpsons predicted that one too? Didn't they? I think they did.
Oh my!
Can you imagine the people driving right now flying every day? Like no, they're like flying, people racing in the sky. Like no.
Well, when you go to Boy Scouts, do you think people, the kids your age, are in tune with things the way you are politically and understand what exactly is going on in this country and the brainwashing that's taking place in our public schools?
Yeah. So I was actually having a conversation about this with my dad. And, I have conversations like this a lot. And, one of the things I say is I'm like, well, it was different when you grew up. It's like you didn't have to worry about this so much. And I'm thinking about myself and like the parents that I have and how aware they are. And I'm aware as a person because of how I've been raised. I was just raised like I kind of gravitated toward news. So it's just kind of my thing. But the kids around me, I'd say they're more just kind of materialistic. They're focused on, their school. They're focused on, girls, just the normal things that you would be interested in my age. And, they're not really, they're focused on the smaller picture, that being their point of view, rather than it being just the bigger picture of everyone's point of view and how certain global things can impact everyone.
Sure.
So it's just that kind of, feeling like you're invincible feeling where you can just like do whatever you want. That's where everyone at my age is at. For myself, on the other hand, it's just kind of, I see everything that's happening and I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to attribute to that. And I want to learn what I can, and I want to attribute to a good society, and I want to surround myself with good people, and I want to do more things like this.
Yeah.
It's different. It really is. So,
Sure.
There is a huge gap between me as a person and how I view things and how other people my age look
Sure.
at just this world, like even TikTok, they have a different view of social media than I do. I don't have social media because, you know, I'm a standard person. I don't like anything that's either like gonna manipulate me in certain ways or that can manipulate me. So I just focus on the things that, you know, I like to focus on things that, you know, I want to strive to be. You know, that being helping my church with podcasts. And speaking of that, it looks like you guys have like a new overlay for this, which is really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're hooked up by CB, the producer.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
CB.
Liberty.
Thank you, CB. Yeah.
Homeschool will. Now, do you attribute the differences in the way that you think to, like you said, your parents, or like what other factors made you different from everybody else? Because I think everybody, if they would have a child, they would want them to be just like homeschool will.
So I think that my point of view wasn't like exactly shaped by my parents. I think my parents said, "Oh yeah, this is what we believe," and then they logically laid it out, and I was like, "Okay, well, you guys explained to me why like this is logical to believe this. I'm gonna believe it as well." So what I'm like doing, and they've taught me how to do this, is they've taught me how to formulate my own opinions or formulate my own like thoughts based on logical analysis of something, and then further look into it, and then, you know, be able to be outspoken and talk about it.
It's good.
That's
And you do
amazing.
that really well.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You're
I
rare these
think
days.
that even though this day and age is different, I think that for a long time, and maybe even going back to when Philly Chris was a kid, I don't think that it was any different in that kids who were
Well, we didn't have electricity.
no electricity.
No indoor plumbing.
My point is, homeschool is 15. I don't think that at any point in history was the typical 15-year-old totally obsessed with politics and current events and the news and everything like that. I mean, teenagers are typically into stuff like, well, whether in the 50s and 60s they wanted to listen to their records and do whatever.
It's not like I'm not into music. I like music.
Yeah. But you know what I think?
Yeah. I get it. But, you know, for every generation, there's a segment of the youth who's not overly interested in politics, and they're more interested in stuff that maybe not as meaningful, so to speak. But it's different today than it was when I was growing up, than it is when Liberty or Philly Chris or even Russ was growing up, because today, through things like TikTok, social media, through the education system, the public education system, through television, through the media, you have
they
this
have
overt
the technology now to just reprogram society through.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Of one
that
generation.
The influence, and it's, if you even want to call it an influence, it's almost more like brainwashing, is taking place overtly for one particular agenda and one particular side. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But not only politically, but just in your personal life, like he said, like I think Instagram started with the kids of Instagram, and all they did was post really expensive things, right? And that was like how Instagram launched. They posted ridiculous, expensive lifestyle, like, look at me, look what I have, and look what you don't have.
Well, they have TikTok. I think I mentioned this on the show before. They have TikTok in China, but do you know what they do with TikTok in China?
Yeah.
They educate the kids.
On you.
Well, yeah,
no,
right.
they educate the kids. It's like science and math, and they only get to do it so many hours a day, and then they get rewards. Yeah, so they're teaching
like the TikTok
their
videos, like, what's that? Instead of like, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to teach you how to use a potato to wash your hair.
That's right, like, exactly. Yeah.
Instead of that, they're like, today we're going to learn how to do. I don't know.
Trigonometry.
What's trigonometry?
But I think what Mike's trying to say too is, like, it's so extreme. It's not just like politics are in, you know, the kids' face now ridiculous, and then they have exposure to anything and everything that is horrible.
And this is why another reason why I keep saying I think it's going to get worse, because there's not a lot of kids out there like homeschool will.
Well,
like you're in the minority, which is sad.
But it's so bad that like Will is exactly like he's in the minority, but like we need more
the vast
like
minority now.
yeah,
You know?
but like we
Yeah,
need
that?
more.
as time is going on, right?
We need more kids like that because it's really bad out there.
Well, and the parents are stressed out. I mean, if you look at all those levers they've pulled, they've totally manipulated everything about our society in a very short period of time, isolating people, putting masks on kids that, that we know now don't necessarily do anything. I could go on and on about it, but
potatoes
I think
to
we're
wash your hair.
yeah, right.
Potatoes.
Forced zucchinis, forced compliance, stand in line, do this.
But this
do
is
that.
this is all conditioning. This is all like 100%, seriously, like standing in lines, that food lines, like this is all just part of a bigger thing.
It's
and
child abuse.
It's not just that, but it's conditioning them for. I mean, it is that, but it is also conditioning them for what they're gonna do to them later in life.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
We've heard hints being dropped about food shortages. Like, I don't be surprised, so that way when it does happen.
I mean, we saw it in COVID.
Yeah.
We saw specific shortages.
I'm hearing the truckers are going to have a problem again in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I hope everyone switched to bidets.
Yeah.
I'm kind of upset with the truckers because they said that they were doing the convoy, so I ended up buying a ton of stuff that I really didn't need to have. I was set for like months. I was like, all right, when this convoy comes, I'll be good to go. And people walk in my house, they're like, why do you have bottles of water stacked up to the ceiling?
And just to finish my point, I guess what I was trying to say was I wish that it was just that homeschool Will is just into this, like he's just into politics, he's into thinking a different way. But like if more kids don't become like homeschool Will, like it's over, guys, because they got the kids where they want them. Anxiety, social issues, all of this stemming from what they're into, and look at me and the likes and the everything. Like it's bad.
Yeah. So can I just say one thing? I'm not obsessed with politics. It's not my God. My God is God. All right. And what I'm doing is trying to solve a problem. Like I'm trying to be part of the solution in a society that is being is negative to just freedom, and it's negative to God's plan. And I'm taking initiative, and I'm saying, hey, I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to get in line. I'm not going to, conform to your narrative. I'm going to do this other thing that is different. I mean, my parents, they, when I'm so thankful for them, one of the things that I'm so thankful for them, and I mean, it's even in my name, I'm so thankful that they homeschooled me, because one of the things that like was happening when I was younger was Common Core, and Common Core was just, I saw so much of it in my school. I saw so much of it in just my education, and even in Catholic school, which I was in for a year. They weren't even really pushing certain things about the faith as strongly as they could have, and there are really amazing parts about our faith. And it's sad to see how every day we're losing something else that we can talk to someone else about. For example, it started out with politics. It's like you couldn't talk to someone else. I mean, think of the Beatles. They broke up because of politics. You couldn't talk about politics. Then you couldn't talk about,
this is interesting.
Your
Did you know this,
healthcare.
really, Chris? The Beatles broke up because of politics?
Not sure that I knew that.
Do you know the story about this, Will? Or do you know more about that? Or is that the extent of your knowledge about it?
That's the extent of my knowledge.
Okay.
We're
going to have to look into this. We're going to have to look at topic.
Wasn't it partially because of Yoko Ono too, right? Involved in
I have to wonder if that stems back to the Johnny Cash song. The one on the left was on the right. The one on the right was in the middle.
Well, it's very divisive.
Mixed up in their group, and they broke up because of it.
Yeah, I mean,
those are related.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in our society that's at stake at this point. They haven't taken it yet, but they've, the devil is just taunting us at this point. He's right in front of us. He's coming out and saying, this is what I'm going to do. You guys can listen, or you guys can just keep going on with your life and your comfort, because we become so just, we like our comfort too much. And if we can break free of that, then we can deny the devil, taking this country. Because really, the devil needs us to conform for his plan to work.
Yeah, it's really a
So
test.
the other side's very, very aggressive too.
Exactly.
And this is whether you're talking about politically or when it comes to our faith. There are people who cannot stand Christians at this point in this country, right? There are people who are out there overtly saying, we don't want Christians in power. We don't want to do business with Christians. And, that's something that I guess we all knew would be coming, right?
I mean, we've had things like that happen in history.
Somebody warned us.
Yeah, exactly. You had the Puritans, and you had the Protestants and the Catholics in early America, and then they went at it, and then it's just, it's part of our history for different religions to fight. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
oh no. I was just saying there was an influencer today, a really one, she has millions of followers, that came out and did a funny quote unquote video where she said that Christianity is a cult.
I could say wearing masks is a cult.
Right.
And I could say getting vaccinated is a cult. I could say that about a bunch of things in their narrative, and they come out and say that.
Timestamps on this one, Russ, so we don't get kicked off again. Unfortunately, we gotta. There's certain things we're not allowed to say.
But
I like what you're saying, though.
Yeah,
I'm on board with you.
There are things that are cults in their narrative that.
Yes.
It's just you can't say that about actual religions,
Right.
Well,
that's just what they're saying.
Well, nowadays, they'll let certain people say certain things. It's 1984, like you said in your comments.
Yeah.
But I like Will's style. I like how he came out punching on that one. I said, well, she said this. He said, well, guess what? This is what I say. I love that.
If you were old enough, I'd buy you a beer.
We got to have homeschool Will back on again. We'll figure out how to get that arranged and everything. I don't know if maybe we just send you comments in the videos or something like that. But we'll definitely have to arrange to have you on for a longer period.
We should have your parents on too, probably.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, we'd like to meet them.
Why not? Yeah, Brian.
Good people.
We got a great comment that we're gonna end on from Brian Harper. He says, "So would it be against the law to clone this young man?"
I've got a CRISPR kit over here. We can do something.
Yes,
I wouldn't object to it. I wouldn't object to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we're gonna close out. We're not even gonna let you go homeschool. We're gonna close out the show as a whole right now. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in. That's all time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Phil Duffy. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.
Peace.